This is the Nigeria-South Africa Chamber of Commerce October 2022 Breakfast Forum. And on behalf of the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Osayaba, Giwa Osage, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, I bid you all welcome. In order of protocol, I would invite us all to please rise for the national anthem of Nigeria and South Africa. Thank you. Please be seated. My name is Ajibola Olomola. I am the Vice Chair of the Nigeria-South Africa Chamber of Commerce, and I have the distinguished honor of being your moderator for today's session. If you have questions, comments along the way, please slip me a note or call my attention and I'll come take your instructions. We welcome you all to this edition of the Nigeria-South Africa Chamber of Commerce Breakfast Forum, which occurs every month. And today's event is sponsored by Philips Consulting Limited, easily one of the best-known brands out of Nigeria, an institution we're very proud of, not only in Nigeria, but across Africa, with branches in South Africa and all. So we thank Philips Consulting for hosting this event, which also ties in to their 30th year anniversary. We all know how challenging it is to operate in the environment here in Nigeria, and to have a firm that has not only weathered the storm, but has triumphed, has flourished, has expanded, and has represented for 30 years going strong. That is a remarkable success story, a credit to the vision of the founder, after whom the firm is named, Mr. Folusho Phillips, who is also one of the easily recognizable Nigerians today, and a former chairman of this Chamber of Commerce. I would like to spend a few minutes introducing some of our distinguished guests. I've spent a few minutes trying to walk through the order of protocol because there are so many distinguished personalities here. But you must forgive me if I offend the protocols list by not calling people out in the right order. It's actually not my day job, you know. So I don't do this for a living. So yeah, I'm not quite sure because I have ministers here, ministers representatives, governors representatives, deputy governor. So please forgive me. I'll just go through the order as best as I can. And if there are any errors, they are mine, not that of the chamber. We hold you all in the highest esteem. And the first person I should like to acknowledge is the person of Her Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Ogun State, Dr. Mrs. Noimat Salako Oyedele. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for being here with us. I also have with us today the representative of the Honorable Minister of Interior, Mr. Ademola Adeyinka, who is the special advisor responsible for strategy, innovation, and delivery. Mr. Adeyinka, thank you very much for being here. And you'll realize that I actually took a pause after I started introducing Mr. Adeyinka. That's because as I was reading out his name, I then remembered that we actually have His Excellency, the Honorable Minister for Aviation, Haji Sirika, who is present with us by Zoom and will be speaking with us in a few more minutes. So forgive me, Your Excellency, the Honorable Minister, for not calling your name first. Like I said, the protocol error is mine and not that of the chamber. We are grateful to the Honorable Minister for joining us. And we have a number of people joining this session via Zoom. So it's not just those of us in this room. And we thank them all for joining. So I have announced also the Honorable Minister for Aviation, Haji Sirika, who is present via Zoom. I have announced Mr. Adeyinka. I should also like to announce the Commissioner for Transportation in Ogun State, Engineer Gbenga Dairo. You're welcome, sir. I would, at this point, move on to the other very distinguished personalities here from IBOM Airlines Limited, and I shall be introducing our guest speaker, Mr. Orisi, later on. He was actually sitting, yeah, I see him now. So, but IBOM Air is also here with the CEO, Mr. Mfon Udom. Thank you very much, sir. We all know Udom Air. It's difficult enough operating an airline in Nigeria, and then the state decided to launch into those difficult waters. And in a matter of a few months to a few years, the company has taken the industry by storm. And we're all grateful when you fly IBOM. It's actually quite an interesting experience. And so we thank you, Mr. Udom, for being here. Mr. Oresi, who will be our guest speaker, is the Chief Operating Officer for Udom Air. IBOM Air. And Miss Idorenin Eddie, who is the Director for People Management. I hope I pronounced your name right. Idorein, absolutely. Eddie. Miss Anikon Esenet, Group Manager, Marketing and Communications, and Miss Imelda Abba, Group Manager, Corporate Services. I should be very remiss if I did not recognize the presence of the Consul General of the South Africa High Commission, Dr. Bobby Monroe. Thank you very much, sir, for being here and for always being there at all our important events. We're grateful, sir. I'm looking through my list now, and I hope I've not forgotten anyone. But if I have skipped anyone, I shall introduce you later on. Please forgive me for my oversight. At this stage, I would like to invite the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Giwa Osage, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, to give his welcoming remarks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. to the Deputy Governor of Ogun State, all protocol observed. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you all to our monthly breakfast meeting and the 30th anniversary celebration of Philips Consulting. This month's topic, which is Aviation in Nigeria, What Next?, is quite an interesting one, as it focuses on a sector whose activities directly impact businesses in particular and the economy at large. The Nigerian aviation industry has grown over the years in size, capital, investment, safety and quality management systems, and provides several benefits to the Nigerian economy. There is no doubt that the mobility offered by the aviation sector is fundamental to facilitating trade, investment, and tourism. It aids the fast and reliable movement of goods, people, and services. It stimulates and supports tourism and also creates opportunities for international businesses and market links between entrepreneurs. The aviation sector is also a veritable tool for income generation and economic development in Nigeria. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the aviation industry contributed at least 117.3 billion to the Nigerian economy in the first half of 2022. The Bureau, in its Nigerian Gross Domestic Report, second quarter 2022, stated that the sector raised 84.7 billion in the first quarter and 32.6 billion in the second quarter. While these strides are impressive, the sector has, however, faced a myriad of challenges in recent times. The aviation sector was greatly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and the reason is not far-fetched. In a bid to reduce the spread of the pandemic, countries had imposed severe travel restrictions and lockdowns, which made it difficult for airlines to operate and consequently grounded their operations. With the lifting of restrictions, the airlines have struggled to stay afloat and recoup their losses. The road to recovery for the sector was met with further challenges, with the scarcity of aviation fuel, which caused flight disruptions, suspension of operations by some airlines, and increase in airfares, job losses, among others. The current economic situation, foreign exchange scarcity, rising inflation, and inadequate infrastructure are also factors that are plaguing the sector. To chart a new direction for the sector, all stakeholders have a role to play, which is why we are here today. The government must consider stimulus packages to support airlines and aid smooth operations. There is a need for the government to implement policies and infrastructures that will strengthen the sector. Concessionary arrangements and private-public partnerships to develop the sector must be actively pursued and encouraged. Safety and maintenance standards should be improved and closely monitored and implemented. Also, stakeholders should constantly engage the government on ways to reposition the sector to be profitable and competitive. Air operators should adopt aircraft leasing and other innovative practices that will help manage costs and build efficiencies. Coming nearer home, recently the government launched the National Carrier Air Nigeria. The announcement of the airline has sparked several reactions, including concerns by various stakeholders with respect to launching the airline with elections a few months away, foreign partnership with Ethiopian Airlines, and the equity allotment in the company. It is expected that these concerns will be addressed by the government. I look forward to hearing our discussants, Mr. George Orese, Mr. Richard I.C. Biogu, and Mrs. Iyabo Shoshino share their thoughts with us on this topic. I have no doubt in my mind that this will be an enlightening and engaging session. I also wish to congratulate once again our sponsor for today's meeting, Philips Consulting Limited, on their 30th anniversary. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairman Osayaba Giwasage, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. I did omit to introduce Mr. Phillips, but I can be forgiven since we all know him. But Mr. Phillips, Folusho Phillips is also here with us at the high table. And sitting with him is Malam Al-Hassan Yakai, who is the chairman of Instinct Resources Services. Thank you very much, sir. I should like at this time to introduce our guest speaker for the day, Mr. George Uresi. Mr. Uresi comes highly recommended with 31-year career in the aviation industry, covering airports, airlines, and both the economic and safety regulations of the industry. He's been a general manager for aviation safety and promotion at the South African Civil Aviation Authority. And he was also a he was an award-winning general manager for the Cape Town International Airport. Now, this is significant because it was under his purview that the airport was completely rebuilt ahead of the World Cup in 2010. That's a remarkable achievement, George. Well done for that. He was appointed managing director of the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria for a brief period in 2011. George has played very active roles in the industry as a member of the International Air Services Council of South Africa, a member of the Economic Regulating Council of Airports, and Air Traffic Control of South Africa. He was also the vice president of the Africa region of Airports Council International. George holds a BA from Bendel State, now Ambrose Ali University, Ekpoma, as well as several professional qualifications from across the globe. He is currently Chief Operating Officer for IBOM Air. So I invite you, George, to please come and share some thoughts with us.
Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning to the chamber. Good morning to PCL, and thank you for the honor of being able to speak at this August event in October. I was hoping I'd have a clicker and project. Otherwise, you want me to ad-lib. I'll be on, I think, say I want just come gist. Thank you. Where do I point it to? That direction? Okay, so the topic this morning, when they said we should talk about the Nigerian aviation industry, what next? I was wondering, is this the theme for the day or the topic of the presentation? I said, okay, let's do a combination of both. So I decided to use the topic as my presentation's topic. But I also thought, what should I do? Should I do a statistical presentation with numbers, or should I tell a story? So I thought, okay, when I saw all the names of people presenting, I thought they will do more than enough justice to the numbers. Let me tell the story. So if you guys will allow me to have the props that I need to tell my story, it would be nice. Otherwise, I'll just be ad-libbing the story and it no go sweet. Anyway, let me start telling it with style. The Nigerian aviation industry is a topic of a lot of anxiety for us Nigerians. Not the least us in the industry, but also those who use the industry for their business every day. And right now, the easiest way to describe what we're going through is trauma. We're severely traumatized. But we keep going anyway because we're Nigerians and we can deal with all the incoming. There's plenty incoming. You wake up this morning, the terrain is different from yesterday, but you keep going. And so every time I see our partners, our so-called competitors, but our colleagues in the industry, I rejoice and I shake them and I say, well done. I don't know how you guys are doing it, but it's tough. Thank you very much. So we have it on the screen. But the industry wasn't always like this. In order to tell the story, you have to go back to a time. If anybody is feeling very bad about the way our industry is, it will not answer me. Okay, is it the presentation or the photograph? That side. Nada. This side? Now this side, though. Okay. A little history about the industry. Hey. Because it's important for you to know that it's ironic that we are where we are in Nigeria today. So now I'm getting very serious because what I'm about to say is painful. We started to play in this industry as far back as anybody else on the continent. The first aeroplane that came into Nigeria came in 1922. The first commercial flight was in 1936. Very few people in this room, I'm sure, were born in 1936. If there's any, please raise up your hand. Let me just double it for you now. And Nigeria Airways, if you guys can remember it, wasn't anything like the airline it turned out to be towards the end of its lifespan. Nigeria Airways was actually a fantastic airline. I don't know whether some of you know that it was a fantastic airline with a reputation as solid as any airline right now, like the Ethiopians of this world. It was a solid, super airline. It was the first to land an aircraft, a Boeing 707 in JFK, as far back as the early 70s, with a completely black cockpit crew. So when the ground handlers came into the cockpit, legend has it that the guy asked the captain, please, where's the crew? Even though he was seeing the epaulets and everything and the uniform, he just couldn't make it. It's impossible that this person sitting down here could have flown this aeroplane. So they had to brief him that, no, now we fly and come. That's Nigeria Airways for you in its time. This thing is really giving me stress. I'm sorry because it's cramping my style. It was a launch customer of the Airbus A310 in 1984. I mean, it's one thing to be getting new aeroplanes. It's another thing to be a launch customer of a new aircraft type. Nigeria Airways was the first airline in the world to receive the Airbus A310. That is how Nigeria Airways was in its time. This thing is the one that is stressing me because it's not allowing me to tell the story properly. The airline was a repository of world-class technical know-how. And when I say world-class technical know-how, it's pilots, it's engineers, the people who ran the core of that company were second to none in the world. And it is those people that helped get all these private airlines that succeeded Nigeria Airways came about from the people who came out of Nigeria Airways. So the Okada Airs, the Cabo Airs, the next generation of them was the ADCs. They were made up of people who Nigeria Airways had built with skills that were not second to anybody in the world. Maybe we will just bring the computer and come so I go to tap I'm here because this is not just, it's a bit stressful. Is it possible that you can bring it for me to manipulate? Unfortunately, my presentations, I have to be doing it like this. If not, the story not go sweet. And then, of course, where were most of these people trained? If you guys don't know, they were trained in the Nigerian College of Aviation Technology in Zaria. It was a world-class institution. Everybody that flew in the Kenya Airways of this world, all the airlines, Ghana Airways, generally across the continent, they came out of Zaria. The pilots, the engineers came out of Zaria. In fact, I'm told that Zaria, when I used to go and visit my mom when she was in the University of Ibadan, she was doing her master's then and we were little kids. Every Saturday morning when we go and pick her up from the university, one of the things we used to do was go and eat breakfast with her at the cafeteria, where all of us they would give us our ticket, and you stand in line, you give the guy a ticket, you take a tray, and you move across, and they serve food, That breakfast experience to me was the reason why I swore that I would go to university. My mom. I hear that that's how Zaria was. That Zaria was a fantastic experience at the time. I know a couple of people who went to Zaria, including my CEO, who's been in the industry for more than 50 years. So I get these stories. So what happened? What happened? We're coming towards where we are now. And I would say to you guys, well, what do you think happened? Because I don't know. If I ask some people, they will say Nigeria happened. Some people don't generally like that thing of Nigeria happened because some of us just don't accept that it has to be like that, But some people will tell you Nigeria happened. Well, the state of it today is that the institutional agencies are struggling to offer basic international standard services. The things you will expect anywhere in the world, don't just expect it easily here. If you add that to the fact that we have suboptimal domestic airlines. When I say suboptimal, I'm including my own airline. All of us are suboptimal because we could be much better if certain things were different. There's a lack of the ability to invest to build your airline because it needs a lot of financing. The financing is heavy. For us who have ordered for 10 brand new aeroplanes, we know how many hundreds of millions of dollars that is. You struggle to meet ordinary forex obligations to pay for the things that make the airline work. So, and everything on an aircraft is forex based. If you can't get the forex, how can you be an airline like other airlines in other countries that have access to forex easily? One of the biggest problems we have instead of running an airline is how to get forex. After we don't do how to get forex from morning till around 5 p.m., then after 5 p.m. we start thinking, let's run airline. We should have been running airline since morning. We're looking for forex. And not that we found, though, we'll start again the next morning. Then you add that to the government policy framework. This is not an intention to be critical, but more often than not, the framework kind of misses the target. Sometimes you even wonder if it is the point it is missing. But a lot of things come together to make it a very faulty foundation upon which this industry has been built. So if I were to depict the state of the Nigerian aviation industry in a single picture today, it would look kind of like this. It's a picture of frazzle. We're frazzled. Waiting they happen. We're unhappy. We are obviously disappointed. I am. I don't know about many of you. And frustrated. That's the picture right there. But it's self-inflicted, mostly because if you think about the irony and what makes it very painful is the fact that we, Nigeria, we more than anybody else on this continent, have absolutely no reason to be there. Imagine we have the biggest domestic market. You're talking domestic market in the continent, it is inside Nigeria. You're talking international markets on the continent, it is inside Nigeria. It is lucrative and highly elastic. Whether economy good, whether economy bad, Nigerians will fill up your aeroplane from the front every day. You want to doubt it? Ask British Airways, ask Lufthansa, ask Ethiopia, ask all of them. Right? And on top of it, it is Nigerians. That's a big opportunity because what happens is that 90 to 95% of every flight going in or out of Nigeria is carrying 90 to 95% Nigerians going and coming from all over the world because we are everywhere and we are here. And we like traveling in between everywhere we are. And even to where we are not safe. I don't know if there's any place like that. Even in Antarctica. You must see one shop in Antarctica. I'm very sure, and I'm not joking. Let's go. You will see Okudili's shop in Antarctica. This opportunity is that most other airlines carry as much or more foreigners than their own country people. Our market is made up of our people so far. Imagine when it gets to the point where other people start coming in as much as we do. There won't even be aeroplanes to carry them. So, this market is enjoyed by everybody else except us. Why? Because we can't organize ourselves. Ordinary organizing ourselves, we can't do. We can't organize ourselves. So, everybody, including ASky, Africa World Airways, with all due respect to them, if they are here, well done, guys. I'm not abusing you. I'm just saying you guys are doing what we struggle to do. But there are some things that can be done, and it's not rocket science, you know. How can we change this narrative, change this picture? Change this picture from this to something else. And solutions, and that's how I'm going to wrap up, is that it's not really rocket science, to be honest with you. It's hard work, but it's not rocket science. And let's just do what the rest of the world does. Do we know it? No, we know. Do we know it? Yes. Do we do it? No, no. Why should we do it? But if you ask any of us, what is going to any of the agencies, any of the things, their vision is want to be a world-class, blah, 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 blah. But if world-class is in this direction and you are walking in this direction, how can you be world-class? You have to first turn around and start heading towards where world-class is. You know. So, let me talk about the agencies very quickly. The three of them I'm going to tackle: the agencies, the airlines, and the regulatory framework. This is the way forward. Let's return to the basics. I say that you can't talk yourself out of a situation you've behaved yourself into. You're just going to have to behave yourself out of it. When people see that you've behaved yourself out of it, they start to believe you. We have to behave ourselves out of this rut that we are in. We can't continue to do this forever now. We have to wake up. Wasting time with 200 million people. Whatever we do about the agencies, if you like, let it be government owned. If you like, let it be privatized. If you like, let it be public-private partnership. All the models all over the world are successful. What it is about is providing reliable, world-class airport and airspace infrastructure services. That's all. I don't even care anymore. If you like, privatize. If you like, whatever. But let every airport in this country be like every airport you go to everywhere else, where we have navigational aids, visual aids, the right signage, the right equipment, everything is working, the staff are professional, they are custodians of the knowledge of their area of business. You can't be in an agency for 30-something years and not even know the business and grow all the way to director. You have to know the business. By the time you're there for 5 years, understand the airport business, understand all those things. We need to do them. Get them right. And stop the arbitrariness. Could make it by force with Koboko. Let the airports have master plans and let them be frozen. Let nobody come and say, this place is good to do this building. Do I'm here. It's nice to. The airports don't develop, and the industry relies on these things. You have to. If you Johannesburg International, Cape Town, they didn't just happen. Everything is done according to a plan. Everything has a reason and a logic. You can't just build a very fine building and everybody say, when you enter the thing, the aesthetics is so beautiful and Nigeria don't get terminal. And when you were building, were you planning for helicopters to use it? I'm sorry, I'm not abusing anybody. I'm just venting. This is what we should do to get ahead. On the airline side, we have to abuse ourselves. So I said, carry Koboko. So we'll beat ourselves up too. But we need a creative means of accessing capital. Please now. We need to be able to invest to grow our airlines. See, all of us, okay, not all of us, let me speak for some of us. We are wannabe airlines. You can't have a scheduled career that can be sustainable and successful with 5, 6, 7 aeroplanes. You simply cannot. You have to build your airline to the point where you have 25, 30, and rising to be a reliable, scheduled carrier. You have 5 aeroplanes, one gets a snag, your whole schedule is messed up. They're always going to snag. But if you can't invest in growing them, because they're very expensive to do, if you can't invest in growing, you remain like that 10 years, you are doing 5, 7, 5, 7. You're not really an airline, no. Whereas the airlines that are going around freely able to send their aeroplanes to people like us to start airline because they have too many. Brand new, 138. Maybe they are using like 80. They have another 60 or 70 waiting for who they can go and help. They are making airline everywhere and sending the aeroplanes there with their pilots and all that and helping the people who need the help. We ourselves, the domestic airline, we must professionalize now. Start to do things differently. And one of the things we need to do is to establish proper corporate governance. An airline is an entity on its own. Build the requisite organizational capability to be able to be a successful airline. Be able to run an airline the way everybody else does it. And airlines that are owned by people, the airline is an entity. It's not, you have to separate the airline from the owner. Let the airline be a living being that runs itself. If owner is donating 100 million, it's not airline that's donating it. Now airline can't donate it. We have to decide who is who. Those kind of things. And the policy framework, please let's consider seriously the Nigerian government being able to provide whatever they call it, the access to aircraft, new aircraft by Nigerian Airlines, where they pay in Naira. This is a major issue. And I believe it is something that Nigeria can innovate, establish a body that goes and purchases the aeroplanes from the manufacturers on behalf of the local businesses, but cedes it to the local business, and the business pays it in Naira. If you can pay your lease fees in Naira, I tell you, man, half of the problems of the domestic airlines is solved. And Nigeria, that's the kind of thing the framework should be doing. Give us access to Forex in the meantime now. The role the airlines play in Nigeria, just imagine you guys, there's no airline. Go by road to Abuja now. Go by road to Port Harcourt for your meeting. Go by road even to Benin itself, Ibadan, Ilorin. You need to fly. So the role that we play is so critical, yet we can't get Forex. We're buying Forex from the parallel market. Why now? Everything on the aeroplane we have to buy in the parallel market. We're buying it at 760 to $1. Help us. Oga Folusho, help us beg. Let them give us access to Forex. And finally, on the airlines, the regulatory bodies should support the interests of the domestic industry in everything that we do, especially in the access rights to the market of Nigeria, and when our airlines want access rights outside there. Help us take decisions in our interest ultimately, and then of course, finally, just leave us alone. Get out of the way. Help us and come out for road. So we don't wake up every morning and hear, now we are going to bring this other thing. We are bringing this one too. And we are bringing this one too. Stay away now. Just enable us and see what will happen. So if we did all these things, I'm wrapping up now. We would have a desired end state where the institutional agencies are running efficiently and providing reliable world-class services. Who wouldn't want that? Where I promise you my presentation would have been much better if I had the ability to do this thing as quickly as I wanted to. The domestic airlines, if they access finance to be able to grow into the kind of airlines that you deserve, they would do that, and they will be offering sustainable, reliable, world-class services. They will not be folding up every few years. And if the government policy framework was encouraging and enabling to the industry, we would have the kind of industry we've been asking for since, which is a solid foundation upon which to build the industry that we're looking for. That's what everybody does. It's not rocket science. And airports and air traffic control infrastructure and services are reliable. The Nigerian airlines are succeeding. Who doesn't want that? They're able to grow. Government policy is consistent and reliably in tandem with the legitimate needs of the local industry. Whether Nigeria is happening to me now is what I'm wondering. Where personnel are well-trained, globally competitive, professionals across the board like they used to be in the old Nigeria Airways that we all knew about. And finally, and because of all the above, the industry is thriving and Nigeria's economic interests are properly promoted. You go to an airport, you feel that you are treated with dignity and respect through the service you receive. Whether you are arriving in Murtala Mohammed Airport or departing, you always feel a sense of pleasantness. You get into the airline, it's clean, it's courteous, it's on time. You're happy. It saves us a lot of wahala that we go through every day. And have a picture that's more nice and subtle where, the industry is at ease. It's a level playing field. Everybody seems happy, contented, and fulfilling. We can be this because we actually have the markets to thrive. We just stand in our own way. So I wrap up by saying that this thing is hit and miss. So, as I said earlier, it's not rocket science. It's really not rocket science. Let us just do what the rest of the world does. And our airline will move, as you say, to the next level. Our industry will move to the next level properly. Okay. Oh. We can change the game in Nigeria if and when we really want to. It's about having the will. If and when we eventually do have the will, there'll be a way forward. And I think it applies not just to our industry, but to all sectors, all angles. Anybody who is in an angle of the country that is really, really, I'm not talking about the people in the oil stealing side of it, talking of people in legitimate business. Anybody that's very happy, raise up your hand that everything is going well. So we are just part of a system, and the people who are grooving it now are the ones who are stealing the oil, doing pipeline, collecting ships and all that. But hopefully one of these days we'll claim it back and start using it to do the right things by the grace of God. But this is the wrap-up. The next slide is thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
I would like to cede the floor to the Honorable Minister for Aviation, Hadi Sirika, who, as we all know, has been doing some revolutionary things in the aviation industry, some of which Judge actually referred to with reference to Nigeria Air. He's joining us via Zoom. We will invite you to give your goodwill message and other remarks, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very, very much indeed. And because of the video, I couldn't stand up, so I don't show you my agbada. I want to show my face. So I start to clap and clap and clap for what George had presented. I'm extremely elated that George had done this presentation. I'm very happy, and I think that he had done justice to the topic. However, I am very angry at George, extremely very angry at him. And the reason is simple. We are on the same thought processes. And George never mentioned it. And he listens to me. I'm sure he must have listened to me about 20 or 30 times since I became minister. But today is the only day that me and him, I now know that me and him are in sync. So George, thank you very much. Without wasting much time, I'll just go straight to the topic. And I think I've done a lot of justice to it. I've heard where the moderator restricted me to speak about other things too. The reason is we have got a roadmap in place, and that roadmap is intertwined with each other. And that is what is the problem, as I saw it when I came as minister, and as the industry stakeholder saw it, and also as a consultant saw it. So when we came in 2015, we didn't apportion wisdom and knowledge only to ourselves. As a matter of fact, there are people who have trained us in the industry that are not within the industry. So when I developed the roadmap as a single document, I passed it to the technocrats of the ministry. We agreed on it, and then we called for stakeholder conference, which most of you attended in 2016, first quarter, in Abuja. And we took a decision as to go way forward. And here is one, the much talked about access for capital that we don't have is one of the huge, huge issues and the missing link to aviation growth and development. So we thought that we should establish an aviation leasing company that is private sector led and driven, that you can access equipment, aircraft, everything, and funds now and pay now. And so we set out as a roadmap to establish an ALC. And today I'm happy that we found partners, we've done the business case, we've done the full business case now, and it's before the Federal Executive Council for approval. And once that is done, is a tick. So people can access equipment and pay now. And I'm sure I've said this time and again everywhere I've spoken in this industry. But I know it's very easy for people to miss news and then assume there's no news. But this has been on the front burner for the last 7 years of this government. Secondly, we thought that, well, if you're in an aviation business, you truly need an wide capacity, wide body, multiple eye, high capacity airplanes, not one not able to maybe perhaps 3 or even 4 at a time. Because it would be ridiculous for you to be afraid to ferry it out and ferry it in each leg because you $250 million. So you keep money here in Nigeria, and we have money here in Nigeria, and of course we'll save our funds, and then it will be faster because there is time and the slots are there available. And I'm happy to announce that we also have found partners in this, because everything of the roadmap is through PPP. We're pushing everything to private sector because we don't believe that government has business in business. So the envelope partners were found through a PPP, and we've done the business case. We are now doing the full business case, which is before council also for approval. Once that is done, we negotiate and get established. These will further airline, let's say the budget on airline service in-house and in-air. So this also is a problem. And I need to say, maybe the entire roadmap, all of it is intertwined. An injury to one leg of the roadmap is an injury to all. If you take out the leasing company, then of course the airline doesn't come. If you take the airline, the leasing company doesn't have who to lease to, and the MRO, and the airports, and so on and so forth. So I think those is a take. Again, another aspect is that we realize that we do not have high-level manpower. One, to go into research and development in aerospace and aviation. Two, because you're a pilot or aircraft engineer doesn't make you the best manager of an airline. So we need to develop that capacity. So we set up a university called African Aerospace and Aviation University, and is making the first intake this year. All these things are all
private sector led and driven, and they're all taking time to mature because we had to go through ICRC, Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, a commission known to law of the land, established by an act of the National Assembly to carry out the functions for which it's doing, that they regulate all PPPs to ensure value for money for government and to ensure fairness and equity and to ensure the stakeholders are treated very fairly. Then very quickly also, I like the statement regarding the airlines, I mean the airports, for example, where Judge said that you need to go into an airport. So let me tell the story of Murtala Mohammed that all of you know. If we take Murtala Mohammed Airport, for example, Murtala Mohammed Airport was built about 1978 or thereabout, commissioned by Obasanjo maybe in 1979. It was built, initially designed for 2 million passengers per annum. But it ended up building only the section that can take 200,000 passengers per annum. Today, Murtala Mohammed is doing 8 million passengers per annum. So it's a case that you have one room, one toilet, one living room, and one kitchen. And you have a wife and one daughter. And you suddenly marry 3, 2, 4 wives. And you have dependents and you bring them all into that facility of one toilet. Suddenly from 2 people, you become 15 people. Or you become 20 people. And this is the story of our airports, how they have become dilapidated, unsafe. I'm using the word unsafe because if there's any emergency in those airports, even how to tend to fire is a problem. I was dead scared when I did the survey in 2015 and I found out the position of Murtala Mohammed and the rest of our airports. So I said to myself, well, no. Government does not have the quantum of capital, the finance, and even the liver to maintain this airport to the standards that they need to be. So we started the concession program. And like I said, we're going through ICRC, so it's step by step. You develop the case, you do outline a business case, you appoint this and that, and all the way to getting those who has won. I just announced yesterday those preferred bidders and the reserve bidders for these airports. So the intent is to push it to private sector, give them all the necessary tools that they need to make our airports better. When we came in 2015, we found out some terminal buildings were being built, about 4 or 5 of them, and they're all about 10% at the time we came. My gut feeling as minister was just to say, no, you know what, stop this and just go ahead and concession the airports and give it to private sector to inject their money. But the president has better wisdom. He asked me, look, Adi, source for all the energy that you can, complete them, and then concession the airport, of which happily, within the past 4 years of our administration, we completed all those 4 terminal buildings and they're put to use. But we concession them in such a way that all that George said will happen in that airport, they are happening in other climes because it's in the hands of the private sector and the right thing is being done rightly. So I'm very happy and very glad that George had mentioned that. And the Erythropolis or airport cities, if you look at Lagos now, the intent at the time when they built Ikeja is to ensure that the airport is far away from the center of activity, no noise, no congestion, no traffic, and so on. But what is Ikeja today? So we now say, okay, look, you know what? we will develop all the master plan for every single airport and keep it sacrosanct like a Bible. And we commissioned the consultants, ELF and the rest of them, who have now developed all the master plan for every single airport. I understand that they are going to submit these documents, the initial documents, to us this month, which means in the next 1 week. And all these airports will now run according to a master plan. The era of giving, those of you who have pieces of land, you realize that we have said that no more issuance of any piece of land until this master plan is in place and approved, and we run with it. And then, of course, we give the airports to private sector to run. In Abuja, for example, because of this, government has said, okay, we are not going to repeat an Ikeja. So they have given us 12,000 hectares of land. For emphasis, 12,000 hectares of land. This, from my research, unless I'm wrong, is the biggest airport in the continent of Africa in terms of land size. And what more, to help people doing business, including airlines, including the MRO, including the leasing company, all these airports now, Abuja, Lagos, Kano, Port Harcourt, they're all now free zones. This is another incentive, another support that the government had done, and I think which is in line with what George has been talking about. So these airports today are all free zones. And government, in its own wisdom, had removed VAT from aviation, had removed custom duties on aircraft and spares, had made all the airports free zones. And I think these are things that perhaps maybe the public has not come to know about. Then another aspect of the roadmap is we thought that, okay, look, we should have cargo facilities in such a way that we'll be able to move both perishable and non-perishable cargoes around the world and around the country, and which is being developed. Currently, I'm happy to say about 4 of them have been completed, Abuja and the rest of them. And then we're also building 7 more. The contracts have all been awarded in Ekiti, in Katsina, in Jos, in Ekiti, Katsina, Jos, Yola, Calabar, and of course we already have in Port Harcourt. I think the other one is in Enugu. So we are tending to that, and all of this is part of the roadmap. Imagine the ability to ferry out of, let's say, Katsina, 40 tons of tomatoes into England, where a handful is 10 pounds. A whole basket is 2,000 naira. The amount of foreign exchange you're going to earn. Or imagine flying those tomatoes, chili and pepper, or onions to Port Harcourt from Kano. Because if you go by road, you spend 28 hours and half will perish before you get there. But flying them 45 minutes, 1 hour, will take them there fresh and you have them on your dinner table. So this is also part of the roadmap. So the airport city in Lagos has been designed to link the old airport with the new airport by rail, surface rail, and also to develop all that area where Fan, Nama, and all of them have all those structures, to completely get them out and then put a private sector initiative there to have offices, hotels, cinemas, spas, and what have you. And it's part of the roadmap. And all the plans have been developed, all the consultancy services have been given, and all the works have been done. We are now pushing it to private sector for those of you who are interested. So let me talk about quickly, because I know I'm not supposed to take all of the time. One, just to respond very quickly to some of the things that George has said, and then also to talk about the national carrier. So he said that we need to organize ourselves, that the market is big, that in fact, if people outside Nigeria begin to come inside Nigeria, we are not even going to find the airplane to fly them. True, very true that statement is. And they do need to organize themselves. The local airlines need to organize themselves to be able to provide the efficient, robust, effective service that we need and employ our people. So I don't need to say, because we're all Nigerians, I don't need to say that we are 200 million people. We are at the center of Africa. We're equidistant from all locations. And the rate of return on investment in Nigeria has been proven to be 30. So I agree with him. And then I spoke about master plan, yes, and need for capital I've spoken about. Then he talked about airline donations. Honestly, I don't want to say this, but he brought it, so I'm riding on what he said. It amuses me when I see airlines donating aircraft for patriotic reasons. It gets me worried. It indeed gets me very, very worried. Because I know if you give an airplane to go and pick some people from China, from Rwanda, from everywhere, really and truly, what you are doing is you're taking from the earnings and the profit of that airline. Entrepreneurs and philanthropists are encouraged to do so. But please do it from other businesses, because airline business, if you do it very, very well, the profit has been established to be about 5%. So any donation for patriotic reasons, you are donating the profit for that airline, and you are causing that airline to come down, and the jobs to be lost, and the service not to be there. So any entrepreneur in civil aviation should please donate, should please be patriotic, should please bring our people home, but he should please do it with other sources, not from airline money, because that is a recipe for disaster. And the airline should begin to believe in the roadmap, to begin to believe in what we say we can do. Infrastructure provision, it's not easy. Quantum of money needed, it's not easy to find. As a country, we went through recession twice in this administration. Even in the recession, we had blocked funds of $484 million, foreign airlines, and in recession in 2016, we paid it. Even in recession, we found the monies to fix Abuja runway that has become a death trap. Even in recession, we found money to fix Enugu. Even in recession, we found money to fix Maduguri, and so on and so forth, and to provide the infrastructure. The solution is to provide the leasing company here in Nigeria to also get private sector to participate, to inject money, and to carry on therefrom. This is the solution, and this is what we believe in Civil Aviation Ministry under Buhari administration. And I like the statement also made by George that Nigerians will feel your aircraft from the front. He didn't expatiate. He assumes we are all aviators from the front. And the third is the one in between. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the profit is in the business class. And these are the ones to be filled first in Nigeria. So which means that airline business is lucrative in Nigeria, airline business does well, and Nigerians pay. Now, it brings me to the question of how and why the ticket in Nigeria is more expensive than anywhere in the region. When I was a member of the House of Reps, I was the deputy chairman of the Committee of Aviation, and the only aviator in the House of Reps at that time. We summoned the British Airways manager in Nigeria, in Lagos, and he came to Abuja. And we asked him, why is it that the ticket from London to Abuja is more expensive than the ticket from London to Accra, Accra being farther away? The answer he gave us, very, very, very unfortunate answer, an answer that made me throw up. He said, because Nigerians can pay. I had to walk him out at that time. Walking him out didn't solve the solution. Walking him out didn't solve. The tickets are still more expensive to come to Abuja than go to Accra because Nigerians can afford. So why don't we grow our own to be able to tap into this market, to be able to provide the service, to be able to go into even the price war with them and bring the prices down for Nigerians. Why not? Why shouldn't we do the right thing? Why should 200 million people be at the mercy of 10 million people elsewhere? What is Dubai? UAE, what is Dubai? Dubai is the Emirates Airlines and the airports. If you remove them, the Dubai economy will collapse tomorrow morning. I also say that everything we are doing is private sector led and driven. And I sang this from day one when I became minister. And I spoke about donations. I said, people, and this is raised by George, not by me. And I said, yes, we want philanthropists to donate money to support Nigeria, to go for a good cause. May God bless them and may God reward them abundantly. But please do not take monies from the airline or donate the flight for free to bring Nigerians because they are patriotic. What you are doing, you are taking the profits and the capital of that airline, and the end result is disaster. The airline will come down. We've seen it in Cabo, Okada, and the rest of them. Kolkol, Harka, Hako, and the rest of them. We've seen how they've done this, and we've seen how the airline went down. So if you want to do it, your philanthropist, God has blessed you, please bless, keep the blessing of God with you, and then donate from other sources, but not from the airline, because the margin is 5% if you do it well. So if you donate, you are donating out of that 5%. I think I've made that point. Then he talked about Forex, access to Forex. This is the huge challenge. Everything in aviation is dollarized. Everything. The aircraft, everything you buy in aviation is dollarized, so access to foreign exchange is a must. And here, a lot of people are involved. Not only the central bank, but a lot of people, even the banks themselves. Then we need to begin to see banks in Nigeria that have grown to international standard, that dollar, pounds, euro, naira, CD, everything becomes a currency that they can transact with. So, so government is noting that and is doing everything possible to provide for foreign exchange. But that's not my direct calling. But I know the role I have played, and the airlines will bear me witness to how I've been participating in them. And I said one more important thing, that all our airports, the major ones today, are free zones. Abuja, Lagos, Kano, Port Harcourt, and the rest of them are free zones. So which means doing business in them comes a lot of goodies. I also said that government had removed VAT, custom duty for aircraft and spares, and so on and so forth, just as an incentive to make this airline to grow, or airlines to grow in Nigeria. And I think I'll stop here on comment on what George has said and just briefly talk about the so-called national carrier. So because of the lots of gaps that are there, because of the failure of the airlines day in, day out, because of what we suffered, because of what we saw, we decided that if we have the ALC in place, the MRO in place, the university in place, the cargo in place, and all of it, without the airline, is work done equals to zero. So we decided that there should be a private sector-led airline, an airline that can be called an airline, not a one-man show. There's nothing wrong with one-man business, nothing wrong if it's done very well. The important thing is to do it very well. So we set out to achieve a private sector-led and driven airline where government will own 5% or less. And eventually, that 5% itself will now be, once it's started, will now be ceded to private sector. So we announced it in 2015, December. We began the process. We appointed a transaction advisor. We sang it everywhere I go. In fact, the press began to call me Mr. National Carrier, Mr. Concession, because they didn't believe perhaps it will happen. But we need to be very careful and be very diligent and ensure what is coming, it's something that will stand the test of time. And we progressed. We made adverts, requests for qualification, requests for proposals, and all of that. We went through the process with ICRC and developed a business case. This business case was uploaded onto the website of ICRC. And we did announce that we have done so, and it's there for people to access. And some few that cared to ask, we've given them. We've distributed them in our stakeholder conferences. And it's a public document. And there's Freedom of Information Act that must be respected, to which we have done. Any document that you want for any transaction, for anything that is done within the ministry, you can always get it because it's the law of the land. So that business case said there should be a Nigerian company and christened Nigeria Air, a registered company of Nigeria known to Nigerian law. It's not the case of Virgin. Somebody come in to want to do his thing and few people invest, and then when he wants to go away, he goes away, and the equipment does not belong to the airline, and he takes it and go away. No. That is not the way. So we ran this outline business case. I've spoken in Lagos, I've spoken in Abuja, I've spoken in London, I've spoken everywhere. We held 6 stakeholder conferences. The list of them is where 700 people attended. These are aside from the Zoom meetings, aside from meeting of labor, aside from meeting with airline operators of Nigeria, which had happened like maybe 20 times, aside from all these other meetings, we did on purpose stakeholder conference 6 times where we revealed this roadmap and dwell on the national carrier and ask all the relevant questions, and we answered them. And during this process, I, as a person, had gone to every single major owner of an airline, Air Peace, Max Air, Asma, all of them. Say, please, the government is establishing Nigeria Air Limited, is a Nigerian company. Please come and own part of it. Please come and own part of it. Only last week, one of them claimed that, well, the invitation was informal. I said, well, at least I met you, I spoke to you, I invited you. But if you say it's informal, we have published them in all Nigerian dailies. There is nobody in Nigeria, even the market woman in the village, knows that Nigeria wants to do an airline called Nigeria Air. And it's not Air Nigeria, it's Nigeria Air. Everyone knows that we're going to do it. So that advert we did in papers, newspaper, and including Economist, for those who are international, is well circulated. How more formal can that be? How more formal can that be? So the stakeholder conferences where we unveiled this, the advertisement we did, which is a requirement of law, they're all formal invitation. So I think now he agrees with me, yes, I have invited them, but perhaps they're not interested. So anyways, so there is this airline to be established where we are asking for strategic equity partner to come with all he has as a consortium to own 49% of the venture. There's also 46%, 46% for Nigerian entrepreneurs, whether airline, individual. And by the way, the strategic partner can be a company, a consortium, an airline, whatever it is. And it's well said in our documents. And then government will retain 5%. And for people who are asking, the business case says $350 million is the 100% of the airline for the start. So if you are taking 5%, it means maybe $17.5 million. And a multiple of tens if you're taking 40, 50, 10, 15, whatever it is. And we went through the process. And the process is not our process. The process is the process of ICRC. And there's a delivery team for this airline. And that delivery team is the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, ICRC, Civil Aviation Ministry, and the rest of them. They formed the team to deliver this airline. And so this is a structure. And the business case as is now, which is well circulated, remains a business case. It's not the full business case because there has to be negotiations with the preferred bidders to arrive to an acceptable meeting point to establish the airline. And so the owners or those who responded positively, or I take you back, some people, entrepreneurs from outside the country had come and asked us to please give them more time because they asked a lot of questions. And the questions were valid. And we respected that. We gave them 4 weeks. After 4 weeks, they also came again and said we should give them extra 2 weeks. So we put the extra 2 weeks and put a deadline at 11 o'clock. 2 out of the many that showed interest, 2 came 11:20, and they were late because the pencil has been drawn on the register. So what we had at that time was Ethiopian Airline Consortium, we had Circle, we had MRS, all of them in a consortium, which have been evaluated. Currently now, negotiations is going on between them and us. And these negotiations will now lead to answer all the queries that we have and answer their own queries and the concerns of each and every one. So this brings me to the question, because this week alone, I've spoken in 3 places. AON had dragged me to the House of Reps, dragged me to the Senate, and also I invited them to my office twice, to which all the meetings were held. One of the major concerns is that if this airline is established, they will start from price war. They will underprice everybody, and 6 months down the line, they will not jack up the price and come back and remain the only people playing. Well, I think this is laughable, and this is not the case, and the AON also knows so. Why they know so? Because our laws had provided that any fare increase or decrease, must be with consultation with stakeholders, which is the airline and everybody else, and the NCAA. So how is it that they as stakeholders will allow a fare decrease beyond reason or increase above reason? And how will the regulator, NCAA, allow that to happen? So to tinker with the price of tickets, it has to be with the stakeholders, the airlines, and the rest of them, and the NCAA. So this fear is unfounded. And then the other one is, I was committed yesterday in the Senate. I said to them, as far as we are concerned, there's going to be, this is no different from any airline in Nigeria. If we had any ulterior motive, we wouldn't have been approving airlines day in, day out. Most of the leading airlines today in Nigeria happened during my time as minister. Some of them just got licenses when I came, and we gave them all of the opportunities. Just 3 weeks ago, ValueJet has been approved. United has approved. Ibom Air is approved. All of them are approved. And I remain the only minister, well, sorry, I take that back because I don't know the others. But I know as a minister, there is not any single request by any airline that I turned down. There's not any request that they want to go to Gwangju, to Dubai, to London, to everywhere that I ever turned down. And I traveled far and near to speak for them. I've stood up for these airlines in Nigeria, and it's on record. Even the case of Air Peace with Emirates Airline is a case in point. We are more than willing to support these airlines to grow. Our reason for doing this, I said that my purpose of being a minister is to help to nurture, to sustain, to support airlines and other businesses in aviation and entrepreneurs to be able to do their businesses very well, make profit, employ my people, and give the service, because the service is needed. And I've been doing just that. None of them ever asked anything and I turned down. I knew at a time when to import an airplane into the country, you have to pay the desk that approves it in this Nigeria. And there is no airline owner or airline as a company or anybody doing business in civil aviation, from airlines down to taxi drivers, that ever give me a ticket for free or I ask for anything from him or he paid for anything in my office. And none of them ever come to my office and went back. So we are more than ready as a Buhari government to support entrepreneurs in civil aviation, to open the door for them, to fight for them abroad, to push them to go and do businesses. I've given them London route, which is a more lucrative. I've given them Dubai. Everywhere they want to go, I've given them. Everywhere. So they should get organized, like George said. And I'm happy to hear that they have ordered airplanes, new ones. They should put all that airplane into one, and please pursue this market. I will support them to ensure that they are treated fairly all over the world. Okay, well, I'm being signaled that I'm running out of time. But just to say that these are some of the things and that I need to speak, and I'm more than happy to wait for questions and answers. And I should give you the time to also speak, but to please say, please, I'm traveling out of country. In the next 1 hour, I need to leave home for the airport. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished minister. We're very grateful. I hope you can hear us, and I hope you heard the applause from the audience at the comments you have given us. It's very instructive that you didn't have the privilege of judge's notes before you started to pen your reply, but you have addressed most of the comments Judge had. In fact, if I didn't know better, I would think that Judge and yourself consulted before coming to this event this morning, because you have spoken in tandem on many of the touch points, including Judge's ideas around supporting domestic carriers, domiciliation of payments in Naira. If you then went further into airport cities and so many other aspects of your infrastructural plan that we can only say thank you, sir, for sharing your thoughts. Very, very extensive thoughts. I've got 3 pages of notes. I won't bore the audience by going through them, but I did take copious notes. We're very grateful, sir. And at any point that we all have, we will get back to Felix Consulting with questions and comments, and hopefully you will also be able to provide responses to the audience. Thank you very much, sir. Without taking too much time, we actually do have a panel that we had expected to deconstruct some of Judge's comments and that of the Honorable Minister. I understand we are now ready for the presentation from PCL. The presentation will be made by Mr. Samuel Bamidele, Head of Research and Intelligence. Is the presentation queued?
Thank you. Please, can we have the presentation? Distinguished Honorable Minister of Aviation, the Deputy Governor of Ogun State, also here present, also the Chairman of Nigerian South African Chamber of Commerce, all other distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. I think it's a good time, while I was seated, so I was just thinking, after Mr. George, the CEO Ibom, made his presentation, and I also listened very closely to the Honorable Minister, saying, perhaps if we close now, we've done justice to why we are here this morning. Do you agree with me? All right. So, but for us to be able to tie it properly, what we have done is to put a report together as Felix Consulting, because we've been part of this aviation conversation over the years. And I'm so happy because the company in 30 years, it's a big milestone, and I want us to give a round of applause to all the great men and women, valiant, that have put this organization together. All right, so Nigeria's Aviation Industry Customer Satisfaction Survey, Report 2022. So I'll be moving quick because of our time, so also that we can have a panelist to come take questions and also dissect some of the issues. We have very respectable panel team here that will also do justice to what we have here. So going forward, I hope this works this time anyways. Okay, great. Oh, it's not happening now. All right, so background and context setting. Why the report? What is the Customer Satisfaction Survey for Aviation? PCL Aviation Customers Survey explores the state of the industry. with a view to identifying progress, gaps from the customer lens, actually, in order to provide strategic imperatives or recommendations to position the Nigerian aviation industry. What do we have in the report? And how do we've had that over the years, and what we do is essentially we look at the global aviation industry overview and trends. We also have time to look at the Nigerian aviation industry in retrospect, look at where we are in terms of the current state assessment. We look at the airline measure, trends, airline experience, asking the passengers, the travelers, what do they think about aviation in Nigeria? What do they think about the air transport? All the airlines that we have, what are their experiences? Also, in terms of review of airport facilities, and also at the end of the day, we now put it together for us to have a strategic recommendation. And what do we intend to achieve as a company? We try to bring this report together for us to position Nigeria's aviation industry for growth. You know, like a lot has been said already on how aviation helps to facilitate trade and also helps drive tourism and creates thousands of jobs, in the Nigerian economy. For the past 30 years, PCL has supported several clients and stakeholders in the Nigerian aviation industry on various transformation projects and initiatives of aviation. And how do we go about this? We have Aviation Report, which is one we are launching today, and I'm going to be sharing some interesting insight in the next few minutes. In addition, we have operational transformation, which we do via various strategic business units within the firm, from technology to strategy to operations to learning to training. We have, different research and also intelligence. And also we have collaborative service delivery, which is part of what we are doing here, and with the Nigerian South African Chamber of Commerce in order to see how we can also support the Nigerian aviation industry. We've partnered with FAN, partnered with NCAT and other stakeholders that are in the industry. And finally, what we also have is internal initiatives. At PCL, we have the Aviation Center of Excellence, which we call ACOE, and which is where we drive a lot of our aviation initiatives within the business. Going forward, so the PCL Customer Experience Survey adopted a 4-phase approach, just running you through the methodology of how we put the report together. And we looked at the aviation literature review, what is the literature saying about aviation. We looked at the current state assessment. We developed a survey questions aligning with global standards, and also we deploy the survey across multiple touch points using hybrid of both the online survey and also in-person questionnaire, where we deploy a consultant to the various airports in Nigeria. And what we try to achieve, like I said, is to support the Nigerian transformation of the Nigerian aviation industry. And look at our consultant on the field while we are putting the 2022 survey together, which happened between February and June 2022. You are going to have that details in the report, which is being given to you as part of the survey that you have for the event today. So we have, paper, both paper questionnaire and also digital, by gathering all information for us to have very robust engagement with air travelers. So what are the findings of this report? I'm going to go through quickly. COVID-19 and aviation industry. A lot has been said on how COVID impacted the industry. At PCL, what did we do? Immediately COVID happened, we conducted a very quick survey where we wanted to understand the challenges that the airlines were going to face on the back of COVID, because it almost decimated the global aviation industry, where lockdown happened everywhere and everything almost came to a halt. And what we found, which we saw, was that there was going to be a near collapse, and we found that frequency of travel was going to be severely affected. Another thing that we found is that most respondents indicated that they would only make work-related trips, even on the back of easing of the COVID restrictions or lockdown that happened in the economy due to the COVID pandemic. However, COVID happened. Airlines, I like to say that the global Nigerian industry is very resilient. Despite all the issues that have been raised here today, from regulatory to infrastructure to finance, to forex issue and other, headwinds, global headwinds that probably are also spilling over to impact the Nigerian aviation industry. You can see that the industry has shown a vaccine-induced growth and recovering faster than global projection. You can see what we have here. 2021, we grew by, passenger traffic grew by 45%. Global grew by 28% to 20.8%. By 20.9%, which means that the Nigerian aviation industry has showed very strong resilience, moving very quickly, which tells us that we have to keep transforming and evolving as an industry for us to be able to deliver the kind of values, and growth impact that we should have on the Nigerian economy. Despite the vaccination across the world, what happened, this survey was conducted by the UK Civil Aviation Authority and says that COVID was the main reason. More than half of respondents stated why they had not flown in the last 12 months. Why COVID has eased, and you see a lot of things happening, but the impact of COVID is having a long-lasting impact than we thought it would have, and that's why you see global aviation still, are struggling to repeat. Even IATA indicated that until 2025, before we begin to see, some close recovery to the pre-pandemic level. Trends in the aviation industry. We identify 7 trends that we believe will be shaping the aviation industry in terms of the outlook. Number 1 is shifts in air fleet and networks. What you find is that you now see airlines, going, into the fuel saving, sustainability, aircrafts. You see a lot of Nigerian airlines can be doing very well in that space now, trying to acquire new aircraft. We see a lot of these things shaping how, the development and growth in the aviation industry in the next couple of years. Establishment of national carrier. A lot has been said already, but neither here nor there, a lot of people, stakeholders still have reservation, which I believe that the stakeholders, the panel session will be doing some justice around that. Ethiopian Air, stake around it. Some analysts or experts are saying that, look, bringing Ethiopian here might probably stifle competition, because issues around, multiple entry points was there, even before now, that when Ethiopia Airways partners with us, what now happens to local competition if they are able to increase, operation in Nigeria through Nigeria Air. So a lot of conversations are going on, which we believe that the panelists will also do justice to that. In terms of the impacts, we will see uncertain environment, jets, airfare, foreign exchange, issues around best strike. When you speak to some of the airlines, we engage them where we are putting this report together. Complain about best strike at the airport. Sometimes the aircraft engines due to this and the best strike that also happens sometimes at the airport. Rising operational costs. So this is going to impact the industry. There's going to be some very negative impact because of all these subsisting domestic headwinds that we have. Also, concession of airports. I mean, just yesterday evening, for those of us that follow the news, I'm glad the Honorable Minister is also on the call. The announcement was made this week that the 3 international airport, the concessionaires have been announced. The bidders, right, have been announced, maybe 3 of them, I guess. So we're making progress. So we believe that concession in these airports will definitely shape conversation, going forward, and how the industry also responds. Development of cargo, agro-allied, and airport terminals. We also believe this is a major trend that will shape conversation going forward. Also, establishment of the maintenance, repair, and operations, the MRO. We believe that when and if this happens, it will, help the industry a great deal in positioning us globally, and also establishment of the aviation leasing company, the ALC. So these are the 7 trends that we have identified as a business that we believe will be shaping Nigeria's aviation industry going forward. Customer satisfaction survey from the lens. In the next 5 minutes, I will run you through some of the very critical findings from our survey. Thousands of respondents gave us what they think about airlines, what they think about the airports, what they think about the terminals, what they think about facilities, and all of the things that come together to make up the aviation industry. And for a variety of reasons, almost half of the respondents now travel multiple times monthly. By the time when we did this in 2015, we discovered that the number now has increased. And the way we try to dimension it is that we infer that the increased frequency in air travel is attributed to improved safety. We can see we have made progress. I think that's what this is telling us, that we've made some progress because people now, there's not confidence being imposed in the airline industry. So people now, tend to fly more, right, with our local carriers, which I think is progress. And also can be on the back of the new carriers that are coming into the industry. We heard about E-bomb when, Jibola was talking about, giving a background about E-bomb, in Nigeria. Cost-effective, ticket classes, and there are other new carriers that are coming to the industry now, which will be shaping the industry. So that is sort of affecting, how people, more people are now having, the confidence, to fly with the local carriers. Also, 7 in 10 air travelers currently book their ticket online. One thing we also found is that a lot more people are now booking tickets online. So online ticket booking, the trend is rising across the industry, which we want to say that it's quite commendable that we are making progress in that. However, while we found that, while a lot of respondents says, yes, we now book a ticket online using online platforms. We don't have to go to the counters again or to the ticket office or elsewhere or agent for us to book ticket. What do we find? We find that as passengers become more comfortable with online IT, they are gradually increasing the volume of transaction. Meanwhile, while we have 7 in 10 that are booking online, what you find is that almost 6 in 10 of the air travelers still go across the counters to check in, at the airport. And this is, a cause of concern. You still find, so it means that the level of, online booking that we have is not actually leading to airport decongestion, because that's what you expect when people book a lot online and check in. There should be some level of decongestion within the airport, but unfortunately, we still have a lot of congestion within the airport. That's some of the findings in the survey. Also, across all the multiple channels, inconsistent ticket pricing, unstable internet, and difficulty in securing urgent tickets are 3 principal areas of concern that passengers are facing via their booking channels. Also is part of the findings that we got. And one thing we concluded is that airfares are constantly fluctuating more than ever. So challenges with securing urgent tickets, coupled with the increased cost of late bookings, may be indicative of capacity, that the capacity is still low. And while this is indicative of the over 19% growth for the aviation industry in 2021. Also, over half of air travelers in Nigeria experience flight delays, cancellation, delays in luggage retrieval. Over half of travelers. And let's see what we found. And asking about average in terms of delays, cancellation, and also in retrieving baggage, 67 on the average says, yeah, we experienced that a lot more times. In addition to that, you see when it comes to overbooking of flight and also ordering of changing of ticket by airline staff. Also, over half of air travelers experience flight delay cancellation. Look at this also, which talked about the misplaced luggage, which is quite still below the average, and average with fluctuating penalty charges for extra luggage. Airline experience from the customer's lens. So let's see how the customers reacted. We've talked about how the entire aviation industry, what the general trends about how the passengers see it. The domestic competition landscape is concentrated, currently dominated by 2 leading players based on the survey. Right, so when we asked them that what is your most preferred air service provider, about 31.6% of the flyers says here we fly with Air Peace, while about 19.58% said we fly with IBOM. And the third, which is the most interesting conversation we're having, is that 16.2% are saying that we do not prefer any airline. And what is that telling us? That is indicative that while we have 2 players that are contending, for the top share in the market, you find out that the number of passengers who do not prefer any airline is an indication that existing competition and potential new entrants are strong challengers for market share. We still point back to the point I made earlier, with respect to the capacity. For a variety of reasons, 7 in 10 passengers are saying that this is the reason why we choose our preferred airlines. Let's see why passengers actually choose the preferred airlines. Number 1 is good quality of service. They choose 26.1% said, just give us good quality service, and then you become a preferred airline. Some say it's high safety standard. We can't overemphasize the place of safety in aviation. And 20% say the safety, while affordable pricing is 15.91%. Also, good record of timeliness and flight departure is about 14.71%. Large travel destination is about 11%. And also effective communication is about 10.03%. In the report, you're going to see a deep dive of how the airlines perform when it comes to each of these indicators, against their peers. We concluded here by saying that passengers are becoming increasingly sensitive to quality of service as a guarantee for more value for the ticket money. Service quality is an important factor in building customer trust, loyalty, satisfaction, and retention. Thus, air service providers need to improve their services to be more customer-oriented, meet customer requirements, and loyalty to repeat patronage. For a variety of reasons, 7 in 10 passengers choose their preferred airline. So this is more of the breakdown, which I said that you're going to find the detailed deep dive in the report. You see how they rank when it comes to top rated in terms of the indicators, and also, where they are rated low or poorly, in terms of the other indices. As operators improve quality of service, safety standards, and smart available pricing, passengers' loyalty is enhanced, particularly good quality service, affordable pricing, and good record of timeliness are strong differentiators. More than half passengers say staff attributes of leading airlines are satisfactory. And you can also get more of details in the report about the staff attributes of the airlines. This last segment, which is the airport facilities, let's see how the respondents also respond to this. Over half of the passengers are satisfied with the availability of baggage trolleys and ease of crowd control at the airport. When it comes to, baggage trolley, ease of crowd control, and support staff, the passengers seem to be comfortable with the progress that we have made so far. Conversely, more than half of the passengers experience difficulties in ground transportation, shuttle services, and parking facilities at the airport. And these are some of the challenges that the passengers say they are facing. And we believe that, and by the time I'm bringing all this together, we have some recommendations around some of these challenges that the Nigerian aviation industry currently faces. Travelers with physical disabilities, health conditions are considerably more likely to have difficulties in navigating the airport. And you can see what they feel. Above average of the passengers said that, when it comes to, passengers that are have physical disabilities, for them to access the airport is sometimes challenging, right? 3/4 of passengers are satisfied with the ease of navigation at Nigerian airport. They say, okay, navigation, this is where you go to board, this is where you go, for departure and all that. The ease of navigation is quite satisfactory based on the passengers' feedback. 6 in 10 also of passengers say the facilities at the airport meet expectations. This include washrooms, restaurant, executive lounge, and banking services. However, passengers rate internet facilities, accessibility to electrical outlets, and entertainment in waiting areas as poor. And you can see how very sensitive the passengers are. The passengers truly know what they want, and we all know what we want. But this is how they are. And also in the report, we have the breakdown of how all the airlines have been rated, like I said, and also some of the airports that we have in the country. Key consideration in putting all this together for airlines, for the airport facilities, and also for the general trains, which is the headline measure for the Nigerian, which are the 3 critical areas that are surveyed, the nationwide survey that were conducted in the covered. What we have decided, we concluded from the report, number one, is that industry capacity remains low. And a lot has been said about that already. So, and what we are saying is that there is room for growth. There is room for us to still come together, investment in this industry. I'm excited about new players coming into the industry. Some were announced recently, and we know some are still in the pipeline, right, to storm the industry. For instance, passengers who do not prefer airline, like I said earlier, is an indication or reflect low capacity in the industry. Number 2 is online booking is improving, albeit airport terminals remain congested, and that is telling us that when it comes to investment, like we talk about digitization, there's still a lot of work that still needs to be done. And this is not just the airlines, also the regulators. There has to be collaborative service delivery between both the airlines and regulators. How can we decongest our airport? Sometimes you go to the airport, all of you are familiar with some of the challenges probably you face when it comes to airport congestion. Number 3, quality service delivery is pivotal to enhancing patronage and retention. Customers is that they are the art of the business, for the airline particularly. So all focus need to be feedback from this report. I believe stakeholders should hold very dearly. While you all go back, particularly for players in the industry, you need to look at some of our findings and see how you can use these findings to, for you to be able to grow the industry. Number 4 is safety is key. We can't throw that out of the window. Always, it has to be one major message that we prioritize within the aviation industry: safety, strict adherence to globally recognized safety standard, and consistently reviewing product and services to offer better solutions aimed at passengers and comfort must be a priority in the industry. Number 5 is airport facilities require significant improvement. Facilities, because these are indications, but the facilities we have, particularly when it comes to the transportation, commuting within the airport, what we concluded is that these are indications that there are investment opportunities in ground transportation, shuttle services, parking facilities, and other potential areas. I mean, when we recently, the MD, of FAN was, talking at the conference that happened earlier in the year with respect to how there is ongoing effort in digitizing transportation within the airport. There are conversations around some partnerships that are going on. So I believe maybe the efforts are going on, but we are saying that there's a lot more work to do for us to be able to get this done. Number 6 is airport facilities is fairly satisfactory, and The final point is that airport security, a mixed bag. While the passenger said, yes, security at airport is fair in terms of treatment, but some of the respondents also said that occasional misconduct with the security officials at the airport should also be addressed. Customer is why we are here. And if we take good care of them, they will give us good reason to come back again and again to grow in the industry. With this, I close the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. Very instructive, very informative. It's been a day of so much information about the sector, and we thank Samuel Ladedoyin and Samuel Bamidele, and PCL for sharing their research and the research report with us. We have two distinguished personalities that would take a few comments, both on the industry and also on the report. And the panelists are Iyabo Shosino, who is the former Secretary General of the Africa Civil Aviation Commission. If I may invite you to please come up stage. And she'll be joined by Babatunde Adeniji, who is a partner, General Sales and Solutions Management Limited. Thank you, sir. George, I did tell you I would still have you come up, so please join us. So what we're going to do is just have these three distinguished persons give us a few comments on what we've heard so far. And because this is going to be the last serious segment, we don't want to give you guys too much takeaway, too much homework. So they'll just give us their last comments on everything we've heard, including, if you like, you can also speak about aspects of George's presentation and that of the Honorable Minister, and just make it as free-ranging as you like. And I'll give you 5 minutes each, if you don't mind. And if I need to come back for another round, I have questions, but I'm minded not to ask you those questions if I don't have to. But if your 5 minutes doesn't give us everything we need, we'll come back with another round. Thank you. We'll start with, who shall we start with? I was going to start with you, ma'am, but since you've instructed me otherwise, I shall ask George to start.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, well, sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. I think Mr. George Uresi has given a good overview of the industry. He's managed to summarize quite a lot for all of us to digest. The reality, like he explained, is that the industry is in dire straits. The financials of the airlines, if we could only see them, will give people cause for concern. He's also highlighted the fact that it's an ecosystem, but there is a tendency for aviation itself, even though it's an ecosystem, to sort of behave in a way as if it can be exempted from the larger economy. I say that, for example, if you look at the issue of the exchange rate, it's a big issue for the economy to solve. And I never believe that the solution will be giving discretional and preferred rates to sectors, even though the need is crucial. I think, for me, we need to have what I will describe as national orchestration to move forward. Everybody is talking about Ethiopia now. Part of what Ethiopia has done correctly is everything is orchestrated. They own the ground handling company, the airport. They basically own everything. And so it's easy to have people in alignment. But in Nigeria, even though the agencies that are owned by government, a lot of times they are at cross purposes. I give a very interesting example of something that happened a few weeks ago. It was reported that the Airspace Management Agency was owing the Federal Airport Authority money for electricity bills. And the Federal Airport Authority took the decision to cut off the light of the Airspace Management Agency. And what did the agency do? they cut off services to the airlines. So you have, all of us keep saying it's an ecosystem, but I've never seen our ducks in a row. So it's quite challenging. So for me, the way forward, I used to like the concept of one previous government where you had a minister for national economy. There was a title they gave her, which basically said, look, this person is driving the entire economy in a set direction. We need that. As a country first, then, the subsectors like the ecosystems can feed into it. I'm very passionate about Ayata's mantra that aviation is a force for good. We connect cultures and, communities. We expand minds and markets, and, we enable growth and development of life. It's a very important industry. But I'm also very mindful of the reality that the underlying economics of aviation is very sad. And it gets complicated by the behaviors of, like he pointed out, airlines, where their strategy, because the setup is that they are mutually dependent. So if one carrier is doing a wrong decision, it's going to affect everybody else. And so we have that destructive competition where on the long run, everybody may end up charging below economic prices, and then we destroy capital and airlines die. The Civil Aviation Authority has a lot of role to play. And one central challenge I think the whole industry tends to keep having is that safety and security is the excuse, not to do the right thing. I'll give another example. The FANMD some months back came and announced that the discretion granted airlines to land at so-called sunset airports was going to be stopped. And, safety and security. And a few days later, the DG of NAMA, or the acting MD of NAMA, said, no, stop referring to those airports as sunlight airports. They all have facilities. I don't want to say too much. There's immense value that can be unlocked if we can just make those monopolies function better. I think I'd like to leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Mr. Adeniki. When I come back to you, I'll be asking you to discuss the current wave where we've seen AMCON take an interest in some of the operating airlines in Nigeria. What does that portend, and what ideas do you have around what the sector can do to support airlines better? But I'd like to hear from Madam at this point. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Yes, I agree with George when he said that the aviation industry is in distress. That's the same thing all over the world right now. The truth of the matter is that aviation is a very capital-intensive industry. If you don't have deep pockets, don't go into it. The saying in the industry is that the quickest way a billionaire can become a millionaire is to go into the airline industry, for instance. But the truth of the matter is a lot of our airlines, and I'm going to be giving knocks to both sides, and I hope I get away with it. The airlines, okay, maybe I'll start with the with government, with the environment. Yes, the environment has not always been the most conducive. But at the same time, we have serious players in the industry who are willing to, despite the environment, succeed and do things properly, do it right. However, we have the airlines too, who are not properly set up. They don't have good business plans for the business they're doing. Most of them, their business plans cannot stand up to scrutiny. They don't have good corporate governance. Maybe the government has not always been there for them, but from time to time, the airline goes to their rescue, offers them lifelines. What do they do with the lifelines? They claim it's not enough, but we are also aware that these have not been properly channeled. It's the most regulated industry in the world. It's also an international business. So when you set up as an airline, be prepared to do it as an international airline. Because whether you're a domestic airline or an international airline, the rules are the same. And you have to adhere to them. And the rules are the same all over the world. And you are monitored. And that's why your civil aviation authority or your system as a whole is audited by global entities, just to make sure you're doing it the same way as it's been done in New Zealand, the same way as it's been done in the UK or in the US. But our airlines are not always up to the task. Some are. Some strive to. But a lot of them are not always up to the task. So they need to look inwards. They need to ask questions. I believe that our airlines left the room wide open for foreign airlines to come in. I agree that the government probably didn't do right at the, not initial stage, midpoint, by opening up the country to the foreign airlines, allowing them to go to multiple points and all of that. However, it was because there was a lacuna. The airlines, the domestic airlines, were not able to service those points adequately. Now, government always has to balance the needs of the industry with the needs of its people. And when the two of them, when they clash, 1,001 times the government will settle to take care of the people. Because the people's perceptions are more important to government. Satisfying the people is more important to them than satisfying a small entity. So that's what happened. Yes, government didn't do right. But at the same time, if government probably would not have opened up those points if the airlines were servicing those points, or if the foreign airlines were able to partner with these local entities, because most foreign airlines would prefer to bring somebody into Nigeria, for instance, bring them to Lagos, fan them out to the domestic airlines, for the domestic airlines to take them to other points within Nigeria. But it was very difficult for the foreign airlines to find those they could partner with among the domestic carriers because of their structure, because of their governance system, because of their lack of their defective offerings, their defective products. No airline, I as a foreign airline, I'm not going to give my passenger to you to mess up, to delay for hours when they're connecting, to go to another point, to go to, say, Kano, or to go to Port Harcourt. So because they could not do this, and the airlines, the foreign airlines consistently complained, they had to allow them into the other points. I'm not saying that is the right thing. I'm not saying it's correct, but that's the reality that was on ground at that time. Now, if you live outside of Nigeria, which I was privileged to do, and if you have to go to so many points outside, within Africa, you will find that it's one of the most difficult things to do. To connect, to go from one point within Africa to the other. It's one of the most difficult things to do. And it takes hours. Something that should take 2-3 hours can take 24 hours. And that's where the continental solution came in. Nigerian airlines, I believe, are the ones that should benefit the most from having, from complying with the solutions that have been proffered continentally. But they're the ones that are resisting it the most. Other countries are resisting it as well. But Nigerian airlines, more than any country, have resisted it. They have not even sought to understand what they have to gain. They haven't sought to fully know what is in it for them. But there's this attitude of just rejecting everything offhand that they think is a threat to their existence. And sometimes it's thinking, it's not reality. Nigerian airlines, I believe, need to embrace more collaboration, cooperation, even with each other. Because at the end of the day, George alluded to it. You come in, you have a few aircraft, and you think you're going to expand without deep pockets, without funding. And the truth of the matter is, most banks in Nigeria cannot fund aviation. They are not set up to fund the kind of figures we are talking about when it comes to aviation. The best way would have been for them to come together, cooperate. Really, that's what Africa wants. Big airlines that can compete with the European airlines of this world, with the Americans, and with the big names that we know. So whatever it will take for them to do this would have been fantastic. But they cannot even cooperate amongst themselves. So how can they cooperate on the international scene, on the continental scene? There's so much I can keep going on and on and on about, but I think I'll stop at this stage and wait for the questions to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Shoshina. And you did hack on something that I find very peculiar. I sometimes have to send teams into the rest of Africa. Sometimes they have to go to Burkina Faso, Cameroon, and the like. And my last trip to Cameroon, I was quite shocked when I was told if I had to fly to Cameroon, which is to the east of Nigeria, I first had to fly to Abidjan and then connect to Cameroon. It's an improvement. Back in the day, we first had to go to Paris before coming to Cameroon. So now I have to go to Abidjan and then fly to Cameroon. And I said, it doesn't make any sense. They said, oh, well, you could go to Abuja, spend the night, and then travel to Cameroon the following morning on the Askai. In the end, rather than go to Abidjan, it was during COVID, I chose to go to Abuja. At least the Nigerian COVID risk can be contained. So, but I found that very interesting. And so when I come back to you, I will come back to you for last comments. I would like you to speak about the regional efforts through the Single Africa Air Transport Market Initiative. If you can talk about whether the aims of that scheme have been realized or if they're on the way to being realized, because you did speak about potential integration across the continent to have a super carrier and things of that nature. I'd like to have your concluding thoughts on that when I come back to you. But we'll go to Judge, because Judge, when you were speaking, and the minister has responded to most of what you had to say, but there was a comment that the minister made about Nigeria Air, which I found very interesting, which is that they had tried to get local airlines, Nigerian airlines, to buy into. I'm not quite sure what the IBOM position is, and you don't necessarily have to tell us what the IBOM position is, but I do wonder if you have any thoughts around the challenges of Nigeria Air, as you see it, and why there may or may not be muted interest in partnering up with the government's initiative on that score. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. In this panel of such distinguished people, it's me you chose to ask about Nigeria. Our view, we have a view. We're a state-owned airline. So it's very difficult for us to say that another entity should not have an airline or fault how they choose to do it. What we just want is a level playing field for everybody. If it's a fait accompli and it's done, then let the field be level. And I know we did mention this to the Honorable Minister a couple of days ago. If they are going to get an AOC, let them go through the way everybody else did to get an AOC. Let's not elbow people aside in order to make room for them and disadvantage people, because it's tough enough as it is now to get going in the business, not to mention somebody else being given direct advantages to your disadvantage. But speaking for the airlines, because I think this is crystallizing towards the airline side, the industry does center around the airlines. The airlines are the one who take this very expensive equipment and use it to generate the money they pay to everybody else. They pay the manufacturer, or rather the funder who funded the aircraft. They pay the airport. They pay for the fuel. They pay air traffic control. They pay NCAA. So it's in everybody's interest that the airline is able to use that equipment, that high-value mobile equipment, optimally to be able to do all these things and still, earn a living out of it. So we, using us as an example, we have tried to find out whether this business is possible or not in Nigeria. I think that is the experiment that we are doing. Is this business possible, or is it a fluke? So we've tried to set ourselves up properly. We even used PCL as consultants to help us set up the organization, define the organization, and just to cross-check that we're thinking correctly and doing things correctly. We've tried to test whether the range of ticket prices that we get in Nigeria are sufficient to run an airline, to pay for all the costs of running an airline and still make money. And so far, as tough as it has been, it is looking possible that this thing is possible to do. The one thing that we know is that it's not possible to do sustainably with 5, 6, 7, 8 aircraft. That one we know. So very quickly, we already knew in terms of our business plan that we can't stand here for, if you allow yourself to be sucked into staying here at 5, 6, 7 aeroplanes, you're not going anywhere as an airline. So we are aggressively growing. It is only in that growth that you are able to first of all, generate the level of consistent revenue that allows you to build a successful airline business. So when I look and I see many of our domestic airlines, many have come and gone, never exceeding 5 aeroplanes in their fleet, I understand why that happened, you know. So we are still in the experiment. We're trying to do everything right, and we're learning from our mistakes as we go along. And maybe, as Madame has said, another 5, 6 years down the line, all of us will know whether this thing worked or not, but we think that we're on the right track and we think it's going to happen, and so far so good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So we'll take your concluding remarks, Mr. Adeniji, in terms of also if you could touch on my earlier question, in terms of AMCON's being compelled, if you like, by the economic circumstances of a few domestic carriers. So if you could touch on that and make your concluding remarks. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, sir. The AMCON case gives us an opportunity to learn quite a bit about things we tend to do wrong. You know, this concept of too big to fail. You know, why wait till something becomes too big to fail? Again, it's one classic example of how the economy is intertwined. And once, because the airline industry is so sensitive to the economy, if one side of the economy drops the ball, you get the impact. Banks lend money to these airlines, you get. Now, what is happening? The main issue for me with the AMCON thing is, my understanding was it was meant to be a quick, you know, move in and move out. But those are the kind of things that are distorting competition. You have a carrier who have said, look, we've demonstrated we can grow, we want to grow faster. But you are keeping airlines subsidized, for want of a better term, and barely existing. And then you are having people lease aircraft to those entities to keep them running. What we need to do is face the fact that aviation, when it goes wrong, has societal costs. How do we address those costs proactively? How do we ease, in the least painful way, those entities that cannot continue to operate at optimum, so that those who have that push and drive to be optimum, in fact, to use George's term, you know, move them out of their way, basically. But do it in a structured way such that the impact on staff, impact on suppliers. I've done work with Jet A1 suppliers, and so many of them have their businesses turned upside down because airline were owing them so much. So the impact is there. So if we understand the impact, that we need to proactively address them. Madam mentioned something about the Civil Aviation Authority and about the quality of business plans. There is a airline financial health unit within the Civil Aviation Authority. They can be more proactive about checking these airlines so that we don't wait till the inevitable. The last few months, we had very clear example of the situation the airlines find themselves. Immediately, the Civil Aviation Authority announced they've done economic audits. You had one airline grounded. You had one airline proactively ground itself. And you had another one. What happened to the third one now? Because there were three of them. Suspended them for a few days or a few weeks. Why? They were owing so much, and the authority came to the conclusion that you cannot operate safely and secure. You don't have the funds to do that. But they're back flying. But the point I'm making is it is too costly to wait. It does not help the industry be efficient and competitive. It is getting in their way. So I think our bankruptcy laws need to be looked at in ways that can, one, minimize the negative societal impact and start using that as a way to start consolidating. Because ultimately, the industry structure will favor consolidation, getting bigger, and really become operating at the right scale so that we can really get effective airlines functioning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for the homework you have given Osayaba. I see, good day, sir, a couple of other senior advocates here, Mr. Jumogovia, SAN, Dr. Ajayi, SAN, and his managing partner as well, SAN. So there are a number of people here who can address your comments on bankruptcy laws. And thank you very much for the additional homework. I thought I was getting an easy answer from you, but you sent us back to the classroom. So at this point, Mrs. Shoshina, I would ask for your comments, ma'am. About 2 minutes, if you can just wrap it up in 2 minutes.
I'm going to take George up on something that he said. He said, we pay this, we pay that, we pay NCAA. The truth of the matter is that no airline pays NCAA. The passenger pays NCAA. NCAA is the only organization whose work is directly to the passenger. And so the passenger pays NCAA. But most of the airlines come in thinking that they pay NCAA through the airlines just for it to ease the experience of the passenger, so that the passenger doesn't stay here, pay there. That's all. So these monies are supposed to be remitted to NCAA, but the airlines feel they can keep it and use it to fund their airlines. So I needed to put that out in the space, because they go to the press, electronic, print, whatever, and they say, we pay NCAA, we pay the agencies. So this is not correct. And that's why sometimes, if they owe so much, they will take them to task for that. Now, talking about the Continental Initiative, you said I should address. Africa has a huge population, over 1 billion. We have roughly 11.6 square miles. We have a large middle class. At least that was pre-COVID. I don't know about now. I will leave it to Phillips Consulting to let us know that. But we do not, in terms of global traffic, we account for just about 3%. We have poor air connectivity. We have low traffic, because on some routes, especially because the fares are just too high. And so there isn't enough traffic. The cost of tickets is prohibitive. A lot of people who would want to travel, to go see places, to go see people, they cannot do it. And the cost of tickets is high because the cost to the airlines is also high. Then there are various taxes, there are various charges. We have restrictive visa policies, because in Africa, everybody is afraid that they're coming to steal ideas, to dump people, forgetting that Africa is not necessarily where people want to go. But all the same, they keep protecting their own markets. We have issues of security, safety in some climes. Thank God in Nigeria, it's vastly improved. We have poor airport infrastructure, inadequate transit facilities, even in Nigeria, and a lot of regulatory constraints. So, African leaders sat down and were like, what can we do? They had tried it years before, and they thought, let's give it a try again. Let's see how we can help our airlines, how we can help our people, how we can integrate Africa. And they came up with this single air transport market, African air transport market. Now, why is it not working? That was why you said I should address. It's not working because a lot of people do not fully understand the relationship between SATIM, which is the Single African Air Transport Market, and the Yamoussoukro decision, which was the initiative that was embarked upon, that was endorsed by the heads of states in 1999, which failed. And I dare say, without being attacked by George and the airline heads here, that it failed mainly because of the airlines. Because the airlines were not willing to venture out. They were afraid they were going to die, and they convinced their principals that if you open up, we will die. And that's why it hasn't worked. The same still holds true for the SATIM today. Because so long as the airlines and powers and shakers convince their governments not to open up, Africa will continue to suffer. Africa will not move forward. Africa will not become the giants, the states will not become the giants that you have in the rest of the global space. So, we also have high operating costs. That is one of the reasons why it's not working. Limited access to funding for airlines. Financing is difficult for them. I agree with George on that. But again, the initiatives that were put in, some of the initiatives that were put in place to make it easy for airlines to access, funds and, improve their fleet and modernize their fleet, these have not been utilized by a lot of our airlines. ARIC utilized the Cape Town Convention, and, that helped a great deal. So, those are some of the reasons. Lack of political will is another. And then properly articulating, advertising the system in a way that will make it easier for people to understand is another. And I think I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. Iyabo Shosina is former Secretary General of the Africa Civil Aviation Commission. And as you will tell, she was the right person to answer those regional questions. And Mr. Babatunde Adeniji, thank you very much, sir, for your time. Is a partner, General Sales and Solutions Management Limited. Thank you, Mr. George Uresi, COO, Ibom Air, our pride, our skies. Thank you very much, sir. We come to the end of the panel session, but we couldn't even begin to travel and explore Nigeria or explore the continent if we don't even have what is most fundamental to international travel, and that's a passport. And you couldn't have a passport if you don't have an immigration authority, which is under the supervision of the Honorable Minister for Interior, Alhaji Rauf Aregbe Shola. He's not here today, but he's ably represented by Ademola Adeyinka, who is his special advisor on strategy, innovation, and delivery at the Ministry of Interior. And he will deliver the Honorable Minister's remarks very kindly.
Good morning, distinguished guests. Please permit me to stand on the existing protocol, but while at the same time recognizing Her Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Ogun State. The Honorable Minister of Interior has asked me to express his profound regret for not being here today. He has called me out 5 times to find out how the proceedings are going and is up to date with what is happening at this event today. So my job is much easier. He has only asked me to deliver his speech he has written, while also apologizing for his inability to be here. He's currently out of the country. If he had the opportunity to join via Zoom, I'm sure he would have done that and delivered this directly. He has titled his paper or his speech, "The World Up in the Air." Not quite. It gives me great pleasure to be at this breakfast seminar on the aviation sector. I must therefore thank the leadership of Phillips Consulting for the kind invitation to this program as part of the activities commemorating the 30th anniversary of this foremost management consulting firm. Aviation is a significant leap for mankind since the Wright brothers flew the first plane on December 17, 1903. It used to take great heroism to be able to travel any applicable distance. We used to be fraught with dangers and grave risks. Many never returned from their journeys due to bandit attacks, sickness and diseases, settlements along the path, and other unwholesome factors. But there have been quantum leaps in aviation over the century with the development of supersonic jets that made air transportation fun and movement of large number of people across vast lands possible. Radar evading supersonic fighter bombers that can make vertical landing and takeoff have been developed and deployed. The longest commercial flight from New York to Singapore covers 9,537 miles and is being accomplished in 18 hours, 50 minutes today. Before now, such a trip would have been considered suicidal and would have taken months to complete, if at all. The production of flying cars have been licensed while we await the commercialization of the holy grail of aviation, individual flying suits, with bated breath. But for visas and rising costs, the whole world would probably have been in the air. Still, in 2019, before the COVID-19 slowdown, 4.5 billion passengers flew from one destination to another globally that year. In the same year, 6.5 million passengers were in the air in Nigeria. The airlift of soldiers in Oshogbo for the Second World War and the landing of a plane in Kano in 1925 were milestones in aviation in Nigeria. The high cost of air tickets has, however, not allowed the aviation industry to blossom in Nigeria, considering our huge population and the adventurous nature of our people. Yet, the industry has great and unimaginable potential for growth. National unity and interaction would have been more enhanced if air travels have been more affordable to a wider spectrum of people. With the recent increase in price, only the affluent can afford to fly. Interestingly, Nigeria has an impressive collection of private jets that does not reflect the challenges of the masses to access air travel, but rather the huge disparity between the rich and the poor in the country. There is also a puzzling disparity in cost of air travel between Nigeria and Euro-America. It is somewhat noticeable that flying the same distance in Europe costs less than in Nigeria, and sometimes buying the same flight ticket from Nigeria to a European destination from Europe might be cheaper than buying it in Nigeria. Something seems not to be right with these differences. I try to look at the variables like the cost of aviation fuel and wages for workers, but Nigeria seems not to be much of a disadvantage, if at all. What then could be responsible? I think the lead speaker has probably thrown a lot of light on what could be responsible for this. Definitely, there are challenges, but we need to keep re-examining and refashioning our business models for our people to be well and better served, and for the gains of aviation to come at an accelerated speed. If aviation is well developed and services are more affordable, it will create more jobs. Air cargo haulage will increase and will take some pressure off our roads, with goods getting to users faster and eliminate other risks on the roads. More importantly, it will open up the country and enhance more air travels for business and pleasure. The multiplier effect on the economy and the way of life of other people will be gargantuan. The Ministry of Interior is directly and indirectly involved with aviation. The ministry grants visas to foreigners to come to our country and business and work permits to investors and highly skilled foreign workers. And I must underscore that the aviation industry is a major beneficiary of visa on arrival and also work permits and also expatriate quota approval. The Nigerian Immigration Service issued Nigerian passports and process visitors in all our borders, including at the airports day in, day out. The functioning of the ministry and the Nigerian Immigration Service, therefore, directly and indirectly affect the aviation industry. From 2019 to date, the ministry has processed and granted 1,219 business permits, 2,706 expatriate quotas, and renewed 7,424 expatriate quotas. Well, expatriate quotas refer to the statutory approval that foreigners must have before they can work in Nigeria. The NIS is effectively manning Nigeria's borders and monitoring of migration activities across the 114 land borders, 5 air border control posts, 72 border patrol bases, and 12 forward operation bases. Nigeria is a signatory to Africa Continental Free Trade Area, or Free Trade Agreement, of the African Union, which came into force on May 30, 2019, and which prompted the visa on arrival policy, which we are implementing. All that travelers from qualified nations visiting Nigeria on short-term basis need to do is register online, buy tickets, and fly to Nigeria for the collection of visa on arrival at Nigerian airports. I emphasize Nigerian airports because visa on arrival is not applicable to those who are traveling through the land borders. So I had to underscore the Nigerian airports. We also have the Advanced Passenger Information System, which alerts our system of the intention, travel, and biometric details the moment a visitor buys ticket to come to Nigeria. We have fully implemented biometric visa at all entry points into the country. Hitherto, there was a paper stamped visa with no security and personalization features. Nigeria has also activated the Migration Information and Data Analysis System, MIDAS, which makes processing of migrants seamless at our borders. Our system is connected to Interpol online real-time, making it possible for us to uplink details of lost or stolen passports and get updates on suspected criminals and persons on wanted lists of international security architecture who might be arriving at our shores. NIS unveiled the Nigeria Visa Policy 2020 in compliance with the Presidential Order, Executive Order 1001 on ease of doing business, including the expansion of visa categories from 6 to 79. The implication of the expansion of the visa categories is to underscore the specific reason a visitor is coming to Nigeria. The NIS has also produced 1.9 million passports between 2021 and June 2022. This year alone, 625,000 booklets have been produced out of the 750 applications received. A total of 1.3 million passports were produced last year. What we have introduced, or what we have observed, is that there is a year-on-year growth rate on passport application, and that is not unexpected. We have a huge youthful population, and these are population of people who are migrants. We should also understand that Nigeria has become a major exporter of labor. So that is driving the production of passports and the application for passports. People are traveling to work everywhere across the globe. Yes, we also have people who are doing online, working remotely for international companies locally, but education and labor has suddenly increased the demand for passports. Between 2021 and to date, I think we have seen a spike of about 30% growth rate in passport application. I'll mention that as off remark later so that I can expatiate what we are doing with our passport reform. The Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps has also established transport marshals in conjunction with the Ministry of Transportation to provide physical security to transportation infrastructure in the aviation sector, road sector, including bus terminals, the rail sector, and maritime sector. Let me just use this opportunity to now let this august audience understand what we're doing in our passport reform. The first is we have moved away from paper-based application. Passport application can now be done on the portal. And the portal is friendly and it is very easy to access. What we have also done is that applicants can now choose a date when they can go for biometric capture. We still have a little bit of challenge here. And why do we have that challenge? I mentioned earlier that there's a year-on-year growth on passport application. Currently, we only have about less than 50 passport offices across Nigeria. So if you look at 50 passport offices across Nigeria, serving maybe as many as 10 million people who desire to have passports, then something is wrong with that structure. So what we're trying to do, and which should commence from January, is that we're going to be having front offices across the country, which are not passport offices. The front offices will be special lounges where applicants can freely go to and be comfortably served with the best customer service experience you can have. So we want to move the crowd away from the usual passport offices that are congested to some very friendly and private sector-driven lounges that people can go and do their biometric capture. The work of the immigration officer is still there. They will still be there at those lounges, but at least the crowd will be moved out of the traditional passport offices to the special lounges that we'll have across. We're discussing with banks. Some of them may also have these lounges where biometric capture can be done. We're discussing with hotels where people can also go and do their biometric capture. So what we're going to have is thousands of front offices across the country where this can take place. Now, the other thing we have done is that you can now track the process of your passport from the period you have applied up to the period of production. All you need to do is to go online, put in your application ID, and you will know whether your breeder documents have been verified, whether it has reached production stage, and you'll be able to track it, and when it is ready, you'll be able to go to the passport office to collect it. A number of reforms are coming up in the passport application process. And what we're trying to do generally is to eliminate completely the trauma that Nigerians go through in applying for passport. We have challenges. We know there are a number of unscrupulous elements in the Nigerian Immigration Service who are frustrating this process, but we're on top of our game, and very soon the culture of rent taking from passport applicants will soon be a thing of the past. One other thing we should note about our passport is that the current e-passport that we have, the enhanced passport that we have, is one of the most secured anywhere in the world. And there are only just 4 countries that have adopted this type of passport booklet. It has over 50 different security features, which has made it to be tamper-proof. We're improving that day in, day out. I know there has also been clamor by Nigerians that why shouldn't we domesticate the production of passports? That is also a work in progress. The vision of the Minister of Interior is that by the time we are exiting this government, we would have a passport application process that is seamless, that is very friendly, and that Nigerians can be proud of. But since this is also an August gathering of elite in the society, I also think I need to share some of our own experience in passport renewal particularly. Most of us, we wait till the last minute to want to reissue or renew our passport. I've seen someone who has bought a ticket only to get to the airport to discover that the passport has less than 6 months validity. The rule is that you must have on you, wherever you are traveling to, a passport that has more than 6 months to expire. Most of us forget, and it is very important that we do not forget this any longer. Why? Because of the application system that has been embedded in the NIS portal, it becomes very difficult for you to do emergency passport. We still don't have yet the fast track service. That is coming up, but it's also going to come at a cost. So if you think that you need to travel, it's always good to have your passport valid for a minimum of 1 year. There's nothing in the immigration rule that says that you cannot renew your passport if it is even more than 6 months to validity. So let's encourage our people to renew this passport. And it's putting a lot of pressure on the officials of the Ministry of Interior and also immigration. I mean, big men are here. If they want to travel and they see that the appointment date is in January, they will start calling the minister, they will start calling the CG, and what that means is that those who have been on the queue will now have to be affected by those interventions. So it's important that we adhere very strictly to these principles in the interest of everybody. So, going back to the minister's speech now, I would like to congratulate Phillips Consulting for successfully operating in the challenging but hugely rewarding Nigerian business environment for 3 decades, and has within the period trusted itself in prime position in management consultancy and positioning itself to offer quality services to businesses in Nigeria and beyond. There are still huge gaps in the Nigerian business environment, including but not limited to the culture of excellence in service delivery and a deliberate consciousness of national self-sufficiency. Success in these areas will boost the Nigerian economy and usher prosperity never seen before in this country. I congratulate you once again and thank you for inviting me to this breakfast seminar. I wish you greater success and unending growth in leaps and bounds. I thank you all for your kind attention. Please, if there are questions on the issue of passport, which applies to every one of us, I'll be very happy to take that after the session. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And our thanks to the Honorable Minister for the Interior, Alhaji Rauf Aregbesola. As you all know, breakfast has been waiting, so we're anxious to get to it, and you can ask as many questions about breakfast. But we must also hear from Her Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Ogun State, Dr. Mrs. Noimot Salako Oyedele. Engineer, or even better, wow, Engineer Noimot Salako Oyedele. And we all can see the transformative work that Ogun State government has been going through. So now we know who is the brains behind all of that. Thank you very much, man.
The Honorable Minister for Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, the representative of the Honorable Minister for Interior, Mr. Ademola Adeyinka, the Honorable Commissioner for Transportation in Ogun State, Engineer Gbenga Dairo, the Chairman, Phillips Consulting Limited, Mr. Folonsho Phillips, Mr. Folusho Phillips, I beg your pardon. Chief host today, the Chairman, Nigeria South Africa Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Osaya Bagiwa Osage, SAN, the Consul General of South Africa in Lagos, Dr. Bobby Monroe, our guest lecturer, Mr. George Uraisi, our very eminent panelists, Mrs. Shosino and Mr. Adeni, all members of the Nigeria South Africa Chamber of Commerce, all management and staff of Philip Consulting Nigeria, distinguished guests, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I bring you greetings from His Excellency Prince Dapo Abiodun, the Governor of Ogun State, who is unavoidably absent at this very important meeting. And I also bring you the goodwill of the good people of Ogun State. It's my pleasure to be here today representing His Excellency at this October breakfast meeting of the Nigeria South Africa Chamber of Commerce. It also coincides with the 30th anniversary of Phillips Consulting under the visionary leadership of Mr. Folusho Phillips. We've had a very interesting morning today. I want to thank Mr. George Uraisi for the very interesting story that he told us. And of course, backed up by the feedback from His Excellency, the Minister, and of course from our panelists. So my assignment here is just to look at this industry from another point of view, from the Ogun State government's point of view. When His Excellency got into office, one of the things that was immediately apparent to him was that our agenda, which we term ISHARE, infrastructure, social welfare and development, education, youth empowerment, and agriculture, we needed to look at the different enablers for this. And we saw that in developing our agricultural sector, our infrastructural sector, one of our biggest challenges was our transportation sector. And believe it or not, Ogun State did not have a Ministry of Transportation. So one of the first things that His Excellency did was to establish a Ministry of Transportation and bring in a very seasoned professional in the transportation space, Engineer Gbenga Dairo, to drive this new ministry, to make sure that we create a template and direction for this sector, which will help us achieve our vision for Ogun State. Some of the things that this agency has done since coming on board was to develop an infrastructure master plan for Ogun State. And we now have a strategic multimodal transportation plan for Ogun State in place, which the government of His Excellency Prince Dr. Abiodun has started to implement. The sector that is relevant to this breakfast meeting today is the aviation sector. In the early 2000s, Ogun State was granted approval for an agro-cargo airport during the tenure of His Excellency Prince Otunba Gbenga Daniel. But unfortunately, that airport did not see the light of day. But during this administration, we have revisited that approval, and in line with the master plan that we have seen that there is a need for an agro-cargo airport in Ogun State. For people who do not know Ogun State is also termed the Gateway State. We are the only border that Lagos State has. We are the only neighbor that Lagos State has, apart from the ocean. We have an international boundary, and we're a gateway to the West African subcontinent. We border 4 other states across our border. And because of this, a lot of traffic comes through Ogun State to Lagos to feed its citizens, to serve its citizens, and also to go through the air and seaports in Lagos to the rest of the world. This is one of the major reasons that we have congestion on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, with all this cargo coming from right across the country and funneling into Lagos on its way to Apapa or to Ikeja airports. So in developing our master plan, we realized that there's a huge market for cargo and agro-cargo services in Ogun State. And since we had this approval, we quickly moved into actualizing this airport, and construction started on this airport early last year. All things being equal, we'll be inviting a lot of you here for the inaugural flight, which will land at the airport in the first quarter of 2023. Here in Ogun State, we do things right, and this is also people like Mr. Phillips are part of our think tank in Ogun State who help us and give us direction in things that we do. And we, thank you, please. And one of the challenges that we see in this country is the issue of white elephant projects, where people create projects but do not actually provide the sustainability of these airports. And we have gone ahead and signed an MOU with a company called Arise LLP. And they have created special export processing zones in Gabon, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Togo, Benin, and Mauritania. And we have invited them to create an aerotropolis around our airport. And we have committed about 6,000 hectares of land for this aerotropolis, where we're going to have agro-processing so that we can actually aggregate raw materials from around the country, improve the value, added value on the agri value chain, and make them suitable for export. And also, the reverse, bring things in this aerotropolis where, with the large amount of labor that we have in this country, we can also be an assembly plant for a lot of businesses around the world, which can then be redistributed. The finished products can be redistributed across Nigeria or re-exported from Nigeria, and that aerotropolis becomes a very big hub. Just on Monday, I represented His Excellency in Abuja at the launch of the African Development Bank's Special Agro-Processing Zone, Ogun State being one of the beneficiaries of that as well. And this agro-processing zone will also be in this area so that we can funnel completed goods and, to the airport to make sure that the airport is viable and sustainable. So that we are now looking at aviation, not from the passenger airline point of view, which most of the discussion this morning has been, but from the cargo point of view, which is another growth sector, and which, of course, the passenger airlines can also tap into to give them additional revenue and to complement their passenger airline traffic. Wherever we can work with them in Ogun State, we'll look forward to doing that and making sure that our project is a success, and also help the passenger airlines also to diversify into the cargo sector. Especially with the way the country is also looking to diversify from the oil-based economy, we believe that this airport is a strategic business that has been put in place, which will also feed into all that. In the Remo development cluster where the airport is, we believe that the airport itself could provide up to 25,000 direct jobs, and of course up to 100,000 indirect jobs right across Ogun State, and we have the multiplier effects in all our communities there, which will increase our IGR in the state and consequently increase the financial position, the lives and the livelihoods of our indigents in Ogun State. Our partner, Arise, will come, and we're expecting that the groundbreaking for the SCPZ will take place in November, in another few weeks. And very quickly, we expect that we'll start to get a lot of traffic in that area, and a lot of improvement in the infrastructure in that area. We are also making sure that we are positioning allied businesses and infrastructure in that area to complement the airport. So if you go to the area now, you'll see that the roads have been expanded to take care of the additional traffic being expected. And we're also putting in some housing schemes, because we know that we're going to get regulatory agencies moving very quickly, customs, immigration, all the airline agencies. So at least let's give them some startup accommodation for them before private sector people come in and also continue to develop the area, and we'll expect a big boom in the area. Finally, I want to say that we are not oblivious to the fact that the government is not a good businessman, and we are looking to actually come up with some concessionary arrangements for the airport once we are done with it, to ensure the sustainability of the business long after the visionary, His Excellency Prince Dapo Abiodun, must have left office, and to make sure that the airport continues to provide the needed services in the area, and that it becomes a long-term success for all of us in this country, and of course for Ogun State in particular. So once again, congratulations, Mr. Phillips. Thank you for everything that you do for us in Ogun State and for the whole country. We look forward to many, many more years of Phillips Consulting, and of course very cheap advice from Phillips, from Phillips Consulting as well. Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Engineer Naimat Oyedele. Thank you for your comments. And at this stage, we'll invite Mr. Phillips, Mr. Folusho Phillips, to give his remarks.
Let me start by recognizing and thanking the Deputy Governor of Ogun State for taking the time out here, and also the Minister for Aviation, who I know has gone offline, because like I explained, he was going to be traveling. And of course, thank the Nigeria South Africa Chamber of Commerce, fully represented by my dear Chairman, Osaibe, for giving us the opportunity to do this. I know that we invite people to sponsor these breakfasts, but you're supposed to be sponsoring breakfast. This is moving near lunch. But once again, and I thank everybody, I recognize you all, and I'm truly, truly appreciative. You know, when you send out an invite to people and tell them they're going to start at 7:30 in the morning, it's like a very daunting task. And I must admit, to see a lot of you here and still going strong, it's a clear sign of you being on our side. And trust me, I truly, truly do appreciate this. What I want to say to you is that, after 30 years, first of all, I don't do much with the firm anymore. And so any wonderful thing that you find you want to say about Philips right now, you've got to say to the team that's running Philips. And I want the cameras to help me to focus on this particular table, where I want to identify the leadership of Philips Consulting, starting with Mr. Robert Taiwo, who's the managing director. Robert, you need to stand up, of the firm. And Paul Anyem, another partner in the firm. Jason Ikwegwe, technology guy. Mr. Murenkeji, I have a nickname for him, but I won't use it now. And the lady here, we've got two, Motukwe Osheni, and also we have Mori, who I think she's probably watching us somewhere in Abuja, Shufola. And obviously there's a huge team of totally different configuration of people in the firm, extremely young people. And that is what we see today. Like all the other firms, and I'm sure, Jibula, you testify to it, that a lot of our young people are japping abroad. Believe me, we're all feeling the pain. But the beauty of it is that we do have smart people who are stepping up and, doing what they need to do to keep things going. It's been a long road. When I started the firm about 30 years ago, there was always somebody that was very, very strong in supporting me throughout. I mean, in fact, I'll say without that person, I wouldn't be standing here. And that's my dear wife. She doesn't like this, but I'll still identify her. Mrs. Yimika Phillips. Yimika, I need you to stand up. I want to embarrass you. I know you don't like things like this. Yeah. They say behind every successful man, there's a very, very powerful woman. And I assure you that's the situation here. What I wanted to do was just create an organization that would outlive me. And I tell people this over and over again. The beginning wasn't about being the largest, the biggest, or whatever. It was just that how can we create an institution that will be there long after, I'm gone. And we tell everybody coming in, look, our vision is just to outlive your life. And in order to do that, there are a lot of things you need to put in place to make the organization function. And this has been the guiding light for us in all these years. The whole world is changing. Things are changing very, very rapidly, and you need to continuously refresh. And I think that's what we try to do at Philips. We've traveled a long route, and today is not the time to talk about it, but the link, somebody asked me, was interviewing me earlier on this morning, that what is this relationship with South Africa? And funny enough, we were one of the first to head out to South Africa way back in 1992-93, before South Africa itself was open to the rest of the world. And I know there are a lot of people in this room, a few people in this room who traveled with us, and a lot of people who arranged flights. Mr. Femi Adefokwe, arranged flights for us. In those days, you travel half of Africa to get into South Africa. And in those days, we used to get our visas on a sheet of paper because you are not allowed to stamp it on your passport. And a long relationship started with South Africa, which actually helped us to create a kind of an impression of being a very Pan-African firm. And it's stayed with us all these years. And it's a wonderful thing because it helped us to mature as well, helped us with our brand, and so many other things that are positive add-ons to it. So I don't want to say much more than to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you to a lot of you that have been with us for so many, many years. Sometimes I get very emotional about this because it's been a long road travel, but it's been a very successful one. And the emotion is not out of pain, but it's out of just sheer joy of seeing that we can do this. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll be with us for the next 30 years. Some of you might not be around, but I hope your children will be around so that we have cause to always rejoice. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Well done. As we know, no anniversary is complete without a cake. And we do have an appropriately sized cake. And so we'll ask the CEO of PCL, Rob Taiwo, accompanied by Mr. Felusho Phillips and Mrs. Simika Phillips, if you will please come forward as well. And Her Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Ogun State, if you will kindly join us, please. Dr. Monroe, please. Your Excellency. The Chairman of the Nigeria-South Africa Chamber of Commerce, Osayaba Giwa Osage, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. So we'll ask Mr. Phillips, if you could please put your hand on it, Mrs. Phillips. And all of us can just, just point towards the cake. And I'll call out Phillips Consulting Limited or PCL. Okay, I'll call out Phillips Consulting Limited, PCL, and at PCL we'll cut. Okay? So, cheers to Phillips Consulting Limited, PCL. Now, would you believe this is my first cake cutting experience? So 30 years and counting. What a remarkable story. What a remarkable journey. Phillips Consulting Limited is one of the best known brands in Nigeria, completely indigenous brands, started in Nigeria, that has gone international. They've got branches, for example, in South Africa again, if you think about the collaboration between both countries. And Mr. Felusho Phillips is a very well-known doyen of the Nigerian industry, a titan, a former president of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, a former chairman of the Nigeria-South Africa Chamber of Commerce. The company has produced leaders, and today we celebrate a firm that is proudly Nigerian, a firm that is proudly African. And there's no better time than today, their anniversary, to recognize them for the work they have done.
Highly reputed, equal to the international names that are also, Boston Group and the others. I think he can stand equal to all of those, particularly for somebody who set up the practice himself. Nevertheless, it takes a long time to get to this stage, and he's done extremely well, and he's got a consistent reputation. So, I'm sure he's set for the next 30 years as well.
I'm happy that a Nigerian can set up a company that has become almost an institution. He has the pedigree in terms of his successes, and he's consulted on a wide range of issues. But I always use him for strategic planning, and I find him very, very good with strategic planning. And I'm impressed that he's been able to transform from, in a sense, a one-man business to what you can call an institution that is on cruise control, and it's being run by other people and being run successfully under his guidance, of course. So I'm impressed as a person who's been in banking business that he's been able to establish an institution that would survive, even he himself.
Mr. Felusho Phillips has been able to build an institution through sheer hard work and grit and determination, as well as integrity, over a period of 30 years, and is leaving a legacy that will hopefully survive not only another 30 years, but several more generations. And we should all join in celebrating him and congratulating him for a wonderful achievement. It's really monumental, and I hope that there will be many more who will follow his fantastic footsteps.
I mean, it's a great milestone if you ask me. 30, it's unique. For any business to be sustained up to 30 years, it means they're doing something right. And so they need to be commended. Today, I think we're here to celebrate this great milestone. And given that the theme is around aviation, we want to contribute our own quota to the conversation. And of course, we have a lot to say in the area of building and sustaining aviation in the country.
Oh, yes. Change is constant. There's always changes. The problem is whether the changes are in the right direction. And I think we've come to a head now. I think that we have no choice anymore in the country but to change. A lot of the things I said when the minister spoke, he said those are the same things on his mind, and he's doing a lot of them already.
No, but for PCL it's easy. I don't need to give them any word because they have set things in the correct direction. They've seen the fruits of their labor. They are part and parcel of Iboma. And I would say we are a successful brand. So that's an encouragement. And from what the chairman said, Folusha Philip, you build an organization that will succeed you. They're already doing that from every step that we've seen so far. So they should just continue with what they are doing.
Well, first of all, it's inspiring to attend a celebration of a firm that's been 30 years old. There aren't that many of such firms, and so it's something to really celebrate, where the founder has handed over to another generation to continue the practice. So that's very inspiring.
I came here with self-sponsored, with high expectation, because PSL has proved to me that it's a very serious and committed capacity building institution, and it's also interested in strengthening the efficacy of the Nigerian aviation service, and that was why I said I will come.
The brand has grown in leaps and bounds. 30 years is no joke, and they have proven themselves in the field of management consulting, and they've also displayed exceptional customer service culture, which is a delight to their clients. Ministry of Interior, I'm speaking for now in particular. So I'm very pleased with what they have become in a span of 30 years. And we only look forward to greater things coming out of PCL, and of course becoming one of the global brands in management consulting, competing with the ones that were birthed outside Nigeria, and also making the country very proud of the talent that is on display in this country.
It's a very robust environment in terms of skill, in terms of manpower, and the transition, like you have said, so far I think has been really successful. The fact that the chairman, had taken hands off the business, and you now have younger people, with very broad experience in the industry who are driving, the business, and it's been growth. New divisions are springing up, new departments, new things within the team, and all that. New coverage, actually covering new bigger markets. So I think it's been quite an interesting journey within Philips Consulting so far, even with the transitioning from one generation to another. And all I see is that, the sky is even just the beginning for the business.
One of the key things we've anchored in is around digital transformation, where today we are supporting organizations across the country to drive change and to adjust to the realities of today. More importantly, to help them evolve as institutions, support them in their technologies, strengthen their capacity and capability, and help them build value for the organizations. So over the last 30 years, I've experienced Philips Consulting doing that. Not just the stories, but I've seen feasible changes in organizations where results and tangible benefits have been realized.
This is what we need to build. Sustainability is what we need to build into our businesses. Okay, we've sort of gotten that framework right, and we're helping organizations, you understand, to be able to also do that. Because that sustainability is key. If not, you just find that then it is not possible for organizations to continue surviving. I think about organizations that have lived hundreds of years. It starts from the foundation and how and where the visionary individual who starts that initiative sees it. Okay, most of us are selfish. We just want to aggrandize things for ourselves, hold things, everything is under our control, and so on and so forth. But that's not the way to go. You need to be liberal, you need to be open, you need to empower people to perform. That's what Foolish Office has done. Since joining his firm, it's been enlightening. And I think he remains a mentor and someone I can really look forward to.
So the point is, I think when it comes to succession planning, you have to think to yourself, do I want my business to outlive me? And if you want your business to outlive you, then it means that you must be prepared to give up some of the reins of power. You have to create management teams that are empowered, and you have to create an environment where employees feel psychologically safe, and also an environment where employees feel like they're part of the decision-making process. But it's a very, very difficult and emotional thing to do. It's an emotional process that a founder, an entrepreneur has to go down. But my point is, think of it from a perspective of self-interest. If you want your organization to be successful, unfortunately, it's something that you have to do, and it's something that you have to invest in. And my last piece of advice would be start early.
30 years ago was the birth of a new generation of entrepreneurs, and that was in the banking and financial services industry. When Fola Adeola started GT Bank, Jim Ovia started Zenith Bank, Atedo Peter Side was with IBTC. And so you find out that whilst this new generation of bankers and people in the financial service sector, when they got up, there was also a need for an ecosystem to support them. And usually you find that consulting firms, this is where we begin to operate around organizations like this to ensure that they work well. So when I started Phillips Consulting, it was knowing that we had that kind of clientele. A whole bunch of us knew that we were all going to have to grow together. And since then we've had the telecoms entrepreneurial push. Today we have the digital push. So there's always a whole generation of people, and the important thing is to make sure that the corporate, economic, social, political support ecosystem exists around them to be successful. And that's why an organization like ours, once we keep reinventing ourselves, we therefore are always relevant to the new generation of entrepreneurs that turn up.